I am Dr. Jaime Rodriguez, Vice President of the Weslaco ISD Board of Trustees. This regular board meeting is being conducted pursuant to the Open Meetings Act. Notice of this meeting has been posted online for at least 72 hours. The board is meeting by the use of Google Meets and telephone transmission, which allows two-way communication for members of the public during public comments. A recording of this meeting is being made, and it will be available to the public at a later date. The time is now 5:45 p.m., and I call this meeting to order. I will now begin roll call. Mr. Nieto?
Present.
Mrs. Sustaita?
Present.
Mr. Treviño?
Present.
Mr. De Los Santos and Mr. Gonzalez are not present as of yet. And let the record show that a quorum of board members are in attendance. And we will move on to item 3, opening prayer. Dr. Vargas?
Good evening, Vice President Dr. Rodriguez, trustees, and members of the audience. This afternoon, we do have Carlos Robledo, who will be
I'll make the introduction.
introducing our individuals who are leading us in the pledges and the opening prayer.
We'll start off with our opening prayer. The invocation will be delivered by Ms. Eva Peña, 6th grade social studies teacher.
Please bow your heads. Lord, we thank you for another day of life and the opportunity to do your work. We lift up all whom we love, those far and near from us, and those not so dear to our hearts. Bless all those present here today. May all involved in this meeting be guided by your spirit of knowledge and wisdom. They may act in the best interest of all students, staff, and community. Send your spirit of peace that all may work together to continue to move this district forward. We ask that you hear the petitions in the silence of our hearts. In your mighty name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
We move on to item 4,
Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge of Allegiance.
Up next, I would like to introduce our young student. Would you like to come up here, please, young man? How about a big hand? This is Chris Luna, and he is an 8th grade student at B. Garza Middle School. He is the son of Raul and Consuelo Luna, and Chris is a member of the Cats football team as well as the basketball team and track team. He is also a member of the student council. Chris plans to attend Ohio State University, although he is still considering other options when he goes to college. How about a big hand for Chris Luna and his parents? And if everyone can please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. And whenever you're ready, we'll get started. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Texas Pledge.
Under the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. And we'll move on to item 5, awards and recognitions. Mr. Robledo.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Valdez, Dr. Rodriguez, members of the board. We start off tonight by introducing 3 of our Weslaco East all-region choir members, as we want to congratulate the Weslaco East and the Weslaco High Choir programs tonight. These students will be representing Weslaco ISD at the upcoming Texas Music Educators Association all-region competition to be held November 6th. Only top 20 students from each division are selected to compete at regional auditions, so qualifying for this event has a high degree of difficulty. We have members here from Weslaco High School who are here present, and we also have members of Weslaco East. We have their photos here because they cannot be here tonight. So we'd like to start off by recognizing our Weslaco East High School all-region qualifiers. We have 8th chair Brianna Gomez, 9th chair Paisley Garza, 12th chair Gregorio Zuniga, and their choir director is Jeffrey Figueroa, and assistant choir director is Rebecca Burgett. How about a big hand for our Weslaco East High School choir. Okay,
He'll give them to you. He'll give them to you. Jesse.
Hold on. Let me introduce him first. This is Mr. Chris Fernandez. He is our Director of Fine Arts, first year at Weslaco ISD. And this is actually the first time in about a year and a half that we have had this many students in our boardroom. So it is good to see them here and see their smiley faces. Okay, so up next we would like to introduce our Weslaco High School all-region qualifiers. And as I say your name, if you could just step forward so we could recognize you. We'd like to start off with your third chair, Clio Castro. Third chair, choir. Cleo. Okay. Oh, you want to? Now you can go shake their hand, recognize them. Thank you. Fourth chair, Iris Acevedo. Twelfth chair, we have Brianna Gonzalez. And if their parents are here, can they please stand and be recognized? Parents? We would also like to recognize the choir director from Weslaco High School, Armando Morales, and assistant choir director, Alexis Rodriguez. Congratulations, students and parents. Thank you very much and congratulations. You may exit this way, you may exit this way. Okay. All right, thank you very much. Good job, sir. All right. Okay. Okay, up next we do have members of the Weslaco High School Mariachi Pantera. Let's have them a big hand as they enter the room. Three members here from Weslaco High School, and we'd like to recognize them. They recently auditioned to earn a spot on the All-Region Mariachi, and these students are, let's start off with third chair violin, Fernando Perez. Please step forward. Ninth chair violin, Antonio de Anda. Not here, not present. First chair flute, Gabriela Oliva. Second chair guitar, Peter Torres. And we would like to recognize the mariachi director, Emily Bravo. And if their parents are here, can they please stand and be recognized? Parents. Thank you very much and congratulations. You may exit this way. Hold on a second, Mr. Fernandez. We've got a few more.
He's going to do.
Now entering the room will be our Weslaco High School Orchestra students. How about a big hand for them? Our orchestra students from Weslaco High School earned a seat at the TMEA All-Region 28 High School Orchestra. And as I say your name, if you could please step forward, we'd appreciate that. We'll start off with string bass, Victor Rivas. Is he here? Not here today? Okay. We have violin, Mateo Houston. Violin, Camila Rios. Not present. Viola, Caitlin Elizondo. Viola, Ariana Galindo. Viola, Christian Torres. Cello, Kayloni Rodriguez. Cello, Sebastian Hernandez. Violin, that'll be Johanna Martinez, not present. All right. We also want to recognize those advancing to area. And on the violin, we have Antonio de Anda. Not present. And also on the violin, Fernando Perez. If their parents are here, can they please stand and be recognized? Parents. And we'd also like to recognize our Weslaco High School Orchestra Director, Iram Leal. Congratulations, students and parents. Thank you very much, students. You may exit this way. Okay. Okay. You're good, Mr. Fernandez. Thank you very much. Coach Rodriguez. All right, up next, we would like to introduce these young ladies over here. If y'all would like to step up to the head of the room over here, bring your big trophy with you. Coach Davis as well. How about a big hand for the 32-5A district champion girls track team from Weslaco High School. Cross country team. I'm a little early. That comes later, right? That comes later. All right, this evening we want to congratulate the Weslaco High School girls cross country team for their historic win. The team won the school's first ever District 32-5A cross country title. How about a big hand? Weslaco High School accumulated 39 points. Low score wins, by the way. Brownsville veterans 48 points. Ed Couch also 52 points. So congratulations once again. Team members are, and they also won several distinctions. First team all district, placing in fourth, Natalie Bazan. First team all district, finishing in sixth place, Raven Ozuna. Finishing in ninth place, first team all district, Stephanie Mendoza. First team all district, finishing in 10th place, Jenica Paz. Second team all district, finishing in 16th place, Marely Cuellar. Second team all district, finishing in 18th place, Tia Martinez. And the head coach of the girls cross country team from Weslaco East High School, Josh Davis. If their parents are here, can they please stand and be recognized? Parents. Congratulations, ladies. That's it? Coach of the Year. We'd also like to say that Coach Davis, for winning the district championship, was also given Coach of the Year honor. So congratulations, Coach.
Congratulations. It's definitely good to see the students back in the boardroom receiving these awards. And we'll move on to item 6, proclamations.
All right, so we do have several proclamations for the month of, for a couple of days in October and the month of November. We'll start off with parental involvement. So is there anyone here from the Parental Involvement Department that they could please stand and be recognized? Ms. Garcia, staff, they are here. So this is for Parental Involvement Day. Whereas the National Parental Involvement Day will be celebrated in the Weslaco Independent School District November 18th, 2021. And whereas School Board Vice President Dr. Jaime Rodriguez will be the honorary co-chairperson of the community focusing on Parental Involvement Day. Whereas Weslaco ISD promotes parental involvement, targeting student success in public schools at the grassroots level, integrating community awareness in a united effort with representatives throughout the community. Therefore, be it resolved that Dr. Jaime Rodriguez, Weslaco ISD School Board Vice President, does hereby support and proclaim the day of November 18th, 2021 as Parental Involvement Day. Our next proclamation is Bullying Prevention Week. Bullying Prevention Week. Whereas bullying is physical, verbal, sexual, or emotional harm or intimidation intentionally directed at a person or group of people. And whereas bullying occurs in neighborhoods, playgrounds, schools, and through technology, such as the internet and cell phones. And whereas various researchers have concluded that bullying is the most common form of violence affecting millions of American children and adolescents annually, therefore be it resolved that Dr. Jaime Rodriguez, Weslaco ISD Board Vice President, does hereby support and proclaim November 15th through the 19th, 2021 as Bullying Prevention Week. How about a big hand? We will be celebrating National Family Literacy Month, in the month of, well, this will be for November. No, this will be for the month of November, I'm sorry, coming up. Whereas the need for highly literate citizenry increases at Weslaco ISD, moves toward an increasingly technological future. And whereas reading aloud to a child at least 15 minutes a day helps brain development, vocabulary, and future success in school and life. And whereas kids who read at least 20 minutes a day are exposed to 1.8 million words every year, therefore be it resolved that Dr. Jaime Rodriguez, Weslaco ISD School Board Vice President, does hereby support and proclaim the month of November 2021 as National Family Literacy Month. How about a big hand? And that'll conclude our proclamations.
Thank you, Carlos. A lot of good things happening here at WISD. Thank you very much for all those proclamations. And we'll move on to item 7, public comments. No public comments. So we'll move on to item 8, Superintendent's Report. Dr. Valdez.
Dr. Rodriguez, trustees, members of the audience, this evening's Superintendent's Report consists of 4 different topics. First, we regularly will report to you the COVID-19 update, enrollment and average daily attendance for the school district. And we do have Assessment and Accountability Department presenting this evening with a focus on the bilingual ESL evaluation, program evaluation, and some other talking points when it comes to this year's accountability. And we conclude the superintendent's report with an update on insurance. So the first slide on COVID-19, we do provide monthly to you. We start off with Hidalgo County, then go into our city of Weslaco, and then take a deeper dive into Weslaco ISD COVID counts. And this first slide, as far as Hidalgo County COVID-19 data, it indicates the beginning of October data to October 18th with new cases, hospitalizations, ICU, and deaths reported. The data is indicating a downward trend in our county. And so you see October 18th, as of yesterday, 128 cases, 129 hospitalizations, 50 in ICU, and 4 deaths. But it is a downward trend. The next slide, it's again Hidalgo County COVID-19 report with specific data metrics. We do have the 2020 estimation of population of approximately 1.3 million individuals. And you do have the next column, the next row of the lab-confirmed COVID-19 patients currently in the hospital. You see September 16th, and I'm going to do a crosswalk in the data analysis between September 16th and October 18th, so that's pretty much about a month time in lapse. You see the 435 lab-confirmed COVID-19 patients as of on September 16th, and then you see the 189 on October 18th. Also downward decline. And then you see the adult COVID-19 patients in general beds, 240 September 16th, 296 in October 18th. ICU, 184 to 82. Pediatric COVID-19 patients has not changed. It's remained at 11 back in on September 16th to October 18th. So if we're closely monitoring the pediatric cases, those have stayed pretty steady in the county. Confirmed COVID-19 admissions in previous 24 hours went from 36 to now 18, and confirmed COVID-19 patients on ventilators from 153 back in September to 67 as of yesterday. And so you see the visual representation there on the bar graph indicating the downward trend. When the county did start the Hidalgo County mask mandate, if you look at the COVID hospitalization, back in, it was early September, and the hospitalization rate was 60%, and you see now how it's gone down to 6%. So that's good news. Now we're going to look at the numbers specific to our city of Weslaco. And you see reporting on October 4th, 5 infections and 4 deaths. And then you see October 18th. As of yesterday, 4 infections and 0 deaths. Also positive news. And you see the bar graph there indicating the downward trend. Now we take a deeper dive into our school district, Weslaco ISD. The next 2 slides do provide a summary of active COVID-19 cases by campus. The first slide, as of today, October 19th, we do have a total of 15,583 students and 35 active student cases confirmed. We have a total of 2,278 staff, and we have 3 active cases. The next slide is a breakdown by campus. And so you have the enrollment by campus, the active student cases at each campus, and active staff cases, and the total cases to the right column. Any questions on COVID-19? And we're seeing the decline as well in our school district.
My only question is, if we have 35 active cases confirmed and for WISD, are those numbers not being reported to the city of Weslaco where we have 4?
I'd have to get with Mr. De La Rosa on the reporting of as far as students to the city.
Because this is population, right?
Yeah, actually, Coach, we report, and we're required to report all cases to the county, and then the county disseminates that information down
To the cities.
to the cities.
Okay.
And we'll verify that
Because
as
the
far as
numbers don't add up then.
Right, good point. The next topic on the superintendent's report is the enrollment and average daily attendance. We're closely monitoring enrollment. Recently, I reported how we, school district leaders from around the region met at our Regional Advisory Council through Region 1, the Education Service Center at Region 1, and Deputy Commissioner was present to report how enrollment figures are down throughout the state, as well as the average daily attendance percentages throughout the state. And we are experiencing that as well in Weslaco. And so the first slide indicates by campus. The first column is by campus. We, as of Friday, completed 8 weeks of school. And you see the comparison between 2021 and 2022 enrollment. And then you'll see the difference. So in parentheses, that means negative, right? We're down, and the total is 1,026 students in the district. There are only a couple, maybe one campus, South Palm Gardens, that is indicating more than last year. And of course, our disciplinary alternative education program last year at this time, we were all virtual. So they did not have at this time students present in person. And that's why we now have the students back in person. So we're indicating there how there's an additional 42 there as compared to last year. And then with enrollment, we are conducting and exploring internally within the district, particularly at the elementary level. We are minus almost 700, I believe, children. And so we're exploring why. We know that statewide there's a decrease in children enrolled in pre-K and kinder because mandatory attendance begins in first grade. And so throughout the state, there's been a decline in enrollment in those two particular grade levels. And so we're carefully looking at that as well in our district. And then we are reaching out to our campus principals, especially in the elementary level, for specific schools who have seen a significant decline in enrollment. And then we're examining where the children are, or where are they, did they seek other schools, other school districts? Are they being homeschooled? So we're doing a careful analysis of the decline in enrollment. And then to the right, in the green shaded rows, you see the 8th week ADA, average daily attendance. And you also see a decline in ADA, and which was, the school leaders from around the region noted to the Deputy Commissioner of Education for Texas Education Agency the concern on the drop of ADA as well, because of course that's tied to funding. And so you see the decline. We do have specific initiatives to address and to improve and enhance our ADA, and so we're working closely with campus principals as well with that.
Dr. Valdez,
Yes, sir.
what feedback do you get from the principals as why students are not attending? I know there's a lot of reasons, right? But is it just COVID reasons, or is it in general? I don't know. I know the principals reach out to parents and their staff, but what are the primary reasons why they're not coming back?
Well, why they're not enrolling,
Mhm.
Some are being homeschooled, but that's the study that we're gonna have, that
Okay.
we'll have for you, as far as if they move to another district or another school within our zone, our city. That's the analysis that we're doing, so we'll bring that to you for the next update in the superintendent's report. I can tell you from firsthand, we've had excessive absences also because some have to quarantine.
Correct.
And, I'm working, just to give you an example of children that have to be quarantined but don't qualify for remote conferencing. And some cases where we have children whose parents do not have health insurance or any type of assistance for health care, and do not want their children tested, COVID-19 tested. So we've had some cases, and they have excessive absences. And so they can't take them to the doctor to get a medical condition that now certifies you to receive remote conferencing. So then we have to mark them absent. And, there's extenuating circumstances where you have those cases. And it's unfortunate, but we have to mark them absent.
Okay, thank you.
The next slide.
Doctor, I
Yes.
know we had brought up that issue and Ms. Ustaita was the one that Tillman,
Right, yeah, that's.
and you just mentioned it right now, there's parents that don't have insurance. So wouldn't a program like that assist or help during these times when parents can't take their children to a doctor or
Right, they
something?
can't take them to a medical provider, but then the Texas Education Agency is they're the ones who provide the guidelines, right, on who qualifies for remote conferencing. So the only two is you get tested. If they're going to come back prior to the 10 days that they have to quarantine, you can get them COVID-19 tested, and if they test negative, they can come back before the 10 days. Or you take them to the doctor and they have a medical condition, right? That they must stay at home. Well, we have parents who don't have the healthcare, right? And then they don't want, for it's a family reason, personal reasons, they don't want their child COVID-19 tested. So they don't qualify based on the guidelines from the state agency, education agency.
I just, I know this is an 8-week study. I know, I think we had a meeting at the beginning or towards the end of August, and we actually voiced it out, and I think Mr. Aguilar's here. We voiced it out that there was students not being contacted. They were reaching out to us, they were absent, obviously, or not even enrolled at that time, and I know after a certain amount of days, we dropped them, but, here we are 8 weeks later, and the decline is even further. So what I'm getting at is, I think, playing along the same line with children who are under quarantine. For example, my daughter, I know she's exceeded or close to exceed the amount of absences. I think we're gonna put ourselves in a pickle if we don't address that or come up with a proactive plan as far as how we're gonna address that, because there's kids that are, they have the sniffles, they get throat hurts or whatever, stay home.
Yes.
Which is what we're encouraging for them to do, but they're gonna exceed the amount of days that we allow as a district. So what are we gonna do to be proactive, so we don't talk about this in March, April, May, where, they don't have the number of days. We need to look for a balance right now and not wait until then to see how we're gonna make that work, because we have exceeded, the quarantine is gonna hurt us.
Right, and that's a good point, Coach. We do have SASE, which is for student attendance, right, initiative, where we can recoup. More importantly, it's when students are not in school, they're not learning, which is our number one priority when it comes to students being out. That's first and foremost. So we are able to provide that initiative, the SASE initiative, to be able to, one, make up for the time that they're absent, right? For instruction, for the learning. Two, we're able to recoup and collect those minutes for attendance. And so what I am doing, along with Dr. Raul Cantu, who is in charge of that initiative for the district, we're creating a scorecard that's going to keep a weekly data analysis of each campus and how many, not only will we provide enrollment, ADA, where you're at for that week, but also how many students qualify for that initiative, and then and how many minutes have been collected, recouped, right? And so we're able to attain a very high ADA by implementing that initiative district-wide with fidelity. And so it's myself, along with Dr. Cantu. We're gonna start with Rico Elementary. And Rico's pretty much a model school when it comes to the implementation of that program, of that initiative. The high schools have already started that work, and it's gonna be the SASE tour, district tour, that we're taking out on the district, at district level, and we're hosting, particularly targeting the families, and we know who the children are, the students that have exceeded, right, excessive absences. So we're extending the invite to those families. It's gonna be virtual. We're looking at the last week of October, that Tuesday evening that we're gonna host it. It's myself getting in front of it, along with Dr. Cantu. And so I'm gonna talk to the parents, the importance, right? We understand the time that we're in, but the importance of the children receiving that instruction, that missed instructional time. Yes, the funding comes with it, but for me and for everyone in the school system, it's about the learning. And so that's what we're doing.
Okay.
And we're gonna host that for every single campus. But that's starting the last week in October with Rico Elementary. That's already in the books, that's already scheduled, and then we're gonna take the tour everywhere else.
So are we gonna do it like weekly, or are we gonna?
As whatever we have to do,
Ah,
Coach, to get in front of it.
We had also mentioned, I talked to you a couple of weeks ago, in the superintendent's report, we got feedback from the nurses, surveys about how they felt about the telemed, and a lot of the feedback was they felt like it was going to be a doctor's office where kids were going to go to school,
sick already, and there's going to be a line of kids kind of outside of the nurse's office. And I think that the thought for telemed was something totally different, because being in the school, I know that kids in the morning, they leave their home, they're fine, but during the day, here comes the, the vomiting. Oh, all of a sudden the fever shows up. The telemed is for those kids, not the ones who want to go see a doctor's office or treat the nurse's office like a doctor's office. It was more for the kids are fine, they show up to school, then they show symptoms of something at school. That's more what telemed was for. So I kind of noticed that the nurse's feedback was different from, or the train of thought that we had for telemed. And another important thing that I was thinking, we're hiring extra medical assistants. We have been hiring extra medical assistants, correct?
Correct.
So does every school has a nurse and then a nurse's assistant? Or they should?
MAs through ESR.
Right,
Mr.
without
Dr.
Esther,
Garcia?
it's the nurse and the nurse's assistant who are at school?
That is correct,
With an
Mrs.
LV.
Staito.
Okay.
Actually, Ms. Kaufman is on. She and I just had a conversation just before the board meeting. She was very happy that we have already hired everybody for the campuses as far as nurses, LVNs. Ms. Kaufman, are you on? And also the MAs. So I believe we're just a few short at some of the campuses, if I'm correct. So we're very happy
Okay.
that we have the staff already at our campuses.
So that's another initiative, that we have extra medical help at each campus. So that's why and they asked, I saw one of several comments said, well, this has been researched to help with attendance, this has been researched to help with grades. But was it done during the pandemic when they researched this? And the answer is yes. These research studies that we looked into were done during the pandemic year last year. And it did help because of like Coach mentioned, the sniffles. Oh, I'm just going to keep my kid home. Or if you're throwing up because maybe you ate something bad during lunch, the kids, and we don't know what it is, stay home the next day. So we can eliminate a lot of those the ones that are extreme or severe, by having this program. So maybe if we could revisit and rethink how we would use this, maybe, like we said, we could do a pilot school to see if that would help.
Yes, and if I may, Ms. Ustaita, we had brought, and I'm not sure if Mr. De La Rosa recalls, but about 3 years ago, we had toiled with this idea, and we brought it up to Dr. Canales, and for some reason, it just, wasn't done. And I believe the nurses were for it at that time. I guess because of the timing, that was their only concern, because of COVID, because of the fact that right now they're super swamped with so many things to do because of the pandemic. But I agree. I think that it would be a good idea to possibly bring it in for, a pilot program to start
right.
off. We'll go ahead and look at that. I think that's a great idea.
Okay.
And you said it right now, Dr. Garcia, I think teachers, everybody's swamped right now. Everybody's
Correct.
overexerted themselves because of the pandemic. So I don't think that's a valid excuse or a valid reason why to shy away from something. We here, I know there's other schools doing it here in the Valley. If that was going to be the sole excuse or the sole reason why not to do something, I think we really need to look into this a little bit more, because I think nobody's overloaded more than our instructional staff. So,
Correct.
So-
We'll definitely look at it.
And teachers aren't
Mr.
allowed to
Trevino.
say, hey, don't throw that at us, we can't do that, so that's what
Yeah.
I really want us to make sure we look at this.
We'll definitely look into it. Thank you.
And we can do that, and those are good points. I think now that we have 8 weeks under our belt, I think at the time it was maybe 3 weeks and it's early, it was early on, and the timing, I think, now with cases going down and we're well into week 9, we surely will look into that, and we'll bring it to you next superintendent's report.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you.
And so the next slide, you see the enrollment, and you see the difference between elementary schools. that's where the majority, about 696 fewer students at the elementary level. And so we're closely going to examine that. And then you see the ADA from 95.22% total to 92.113. That's not statistically significant, but of course, we are aiming to have a much higher ADA overall in the district. And then the next slide does provide how the average daily attendance ADA budgeted for 2022 was 15,200. And there's the actual ADA for the first 6 weeks of school, 13,290, which is a budgeted ADA shortfall of 1,910. But the goal is to, if not match that ADA goal, but to exceed it through the initiative of SASE. And then next we have insurance with Mr. De La Rosa.
Good afternoon, Dr. Valdez, Dr. Rodriguez, members of the board. This is the standard insurance slide that we present every month. This is basically a snapshot of the data month to month, comparing this past month, September, to last September. In medical claims, last month, in the month of September, we had a total of, an approximate, $404,000 versus this year, we had a little over $842,000 in medical claims. That's an increase of $439,000. So that was, that really doesn't fit the trend, but we'll keep an eye on medical claims moving forward to see if this was some kind of an anomaly. Prescription drugs cost last year at this time we're at $453,000 versus this month just $396,000. That's almost a $57,000 decrease. And of course, our fixed costs last year were $220,875 versus this year $234,533. So for the month of September, we spent approximately $1.5 million on our medical spend. Just a note on this, the fixed costs include a $100,000 Blue Cross Blue Shield communications credit that we received, so that goes to our administrative fees. And if you can go to the next slide, please, Elias. I break down the administrative fees this year versus last year. As you can tell, the admin fees are higher this year, as well as our individual stop loss premium that we're paying. And that, of course, is we went out for bid for that. And that was the product that was the most advantageous for the plan. So the biggest difference is last year, Blue Cross and Blue Shield gave us a rebate credit of $43.70 per employee per month in lieu of prescription drug rebates, cash received in our pockets. This year, of course, we went with a different PBM, and we will be receiving the full rebates from the pharmacy benefit manager. So we expect the rebates that we get to outweigh that credit that we get from Blue Cross and Blue Shield. But again, we receive those rebates quarterly. So that figure will be updated throughout the year. So in the next few months, you're going to see that our admin fees have increased versus last year. But once we start getting those rebates in, it should fluctuate and get back down to normal or to even below. And then finally, the next slide is our workers' compensation information. This is 1 month of data, September of 2021 versus September 2020. As you can see, we had 16 claims in the month of September versus last year, 8. And as you can see, we had incurred a little over $50,000 in the month of September versus last year, $4,000. Well, of course, you can ask, well, why the difference in discrepancy? You'll have to remember that last year, everybody was at home. So this year, we've got all the students, staff back on campus. So that, of course, you'll see an increase in workers' comp injuries. So, but the plan is still in very good shape. And that's the report on the insurance.
Are we still testing the athletes on Mondays or whatever day for COVID testing?
I don't think so anymore, Coach. I'll have to get Coach Rodriguez up here for that.
And the reason I ask is and I want you to explain to me how this plays into with the insurance here. Are they being tested?
Coach, Monday was the first day that we stopped testing at the schools.
Okay.
And because the federal mandate that they're not providing the surveillance test for the campus, no longer doing that.
They no longer are paying for it. Okay. And I guess that was my question was, were all the kids tested? Were they using their parents' insurances, or were they going under the CARES Act?
What was happening is if the students had insurance, it'd go under the insurance. If they had Medicare, Medicaid, it would be Medicaid, excuse me, it would go under that. And if they didn't, then it would get billed to the CARES Act. But the information that I've received is that the standard testing, as far, I forgot the term that we use for it.
Surveillance.
The surveillance testing is no longer being reimbursed by the federal government. So that, I'm still researching that because, again, that's what one of the providers told us. I'm doing a little bit of research on that to see if that's actually the case. But yeah, that's what the provider is telling us, that the, it's no longer covered.
My question or my angle on this is if obviously now it doesn't affect us, but if the CARES Act was providing payment for the testing, and we knew that kids, and a lot of the kids have parents that are teachers, would we not have encouraged them to just go under the CARES Act instead of billing our own insurance and creating more of a expense for our own insurance?
No, because if our insurance is primary, so if a parent has a student and they are covered under insurance or any insurance, that insurance is primary. The CARES Act is just for individuals that don't have any coverage, one way or the other. The provider will be reimbursed by the federal government for those people that are tested that have, either no insurance or no other government assistance.
But the kids who do have insurance, their parents do get billed.
The district gets billed.
Yeah, we
Yes,
get
that's
billed.
correct.
In
Well,
other
the
words.
plan does, yes.
Yes.
But they really didn't have anybody checking on that, did they? I mean, there's kids that had insurance that were going through, I think maybe mine is one of them that was going through there, that he didn't
That's
even
up
know
to
we had
that's up to the
insurance.
provider to get that information. We did have two providers provided this testing services. So again, it's on them to collect the appropriate data. So if they didn't
Okay.
collect the insurance and build it to the CARES Act, I mean, we don't have any control over that, Coach.
Chinilosa, and those tests that TEA is supplying for us, for the schools, obviously those are free. We get, as many as we want, right? But the parents would have to administer to the kids if that would be the case, if we would use those?
Well, I believe that, and Dr. Garcia can address that a little more, that the staff on campus would be providing that test earlier in the year. Correct me if I'm wrong. I know that Mrs. Kaufman, we did get another grant through the state, and Ms. Kaufman is working on that also, and that's actually hiring an outside company to come in and do that testing, but paid for through the grant. So in essence, the staff wouldn't be doing it. It would be, kind of say, like a curative van parked outside of each campus.
Mm-hmm. But are we still getting those free tests from TEA? Those Binacs, I think they're called?
I believe we're not receiving them anymore.
We're not
no.
anymore.
No. We received our allotment, and I think that's it for this school year.
That's why we're getting this,
Great.
that's why we got this new grant, Ms. Ustaita. With this new grant, we're going to be able to continue not only the antigen test, but also the PCR. So the plan is, and I talked to Ms. Kaufman today about that, because it's been on hold, and I said, well, we need to start it off immediately as soon as we find out, from the feds that the vaccinations have already been, approved and distributed, so that we can start right there and then.
There's and I do know there's a delay in getting the testing kits, actually. And so that's really out of our control. That's the delay right there, the testing kits to the provider. So just like everything else, there's a shortage of everything, unfortunately.
And if we do get this grant and this company comes in and helps us, would that be available to every school? Everybody's going to have somebody there at their school? Okay.
Yes.
That is correct.
Okay.
So we came up with a plan already, Ms. Ustaita, that we presented to the cabinet last week. And so we can send you that information on an update so you can see what it's going to look like. And the idea of Ms. Kaufman and I, and then I discussed it with the cabinet as well, about how we're going to, how we're going to do the testing, whether we wanted to do it at the campuses or whether we wanted to have a central location. And we opted to go with a central location. So we already looked at a facility where we're going to be doing that. So.
Okay, because I know that when you see central location, then when this whole vaccine thing started, many parents told me, why have it at a central location? We'd rather have it at my child's school. It's a lot easier for us since they're already there every day. They're not going to take them over to a separate location. It's more than likely that they'll take advantage of it at their local school. So that's just something to think about probably.
That's another good idea. We do have, if you recall, we have the what do you call those, kiosks that we created for each one of our campuses. So a drive-by would also be another option. So I'll go ahead and discuss that with Ms. Kaufman as well.
Sounds good.
So just one last thing I'd like to add, and this is going back to Dr. Valdez's COVID number report. I did meet with the administrators at Knapp Medical Center earlier today, and they told me that they actually only had one COVID case in the hospital. And that's really good news for our community. And I'll send more information out to the board and the update on that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Loso.
Thank you.
Before we move forward, I just want to let the minutes reflect that Mr. Gonzalez arrived at 6:20 p.m. and Mr. De Los Santos at 6:32.
Good evening, Dr. Valdez, Vice President Dr. Rodriguez, and members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity this evening to present on the WISD Emergent Bilingual Evaluation 2021. That's a new term you're going to be hearing from TEA and from the school district, which replaces essentially English learners, bilingual students, ESL students, or the old term, which was LEP. So by state statute, we are required to present the bilingual evaluation every single year. And so here are just some numbers, just to give you an overview of our district. Out of our 15,556 students as of yesterday, 4,034 are EBs, or emergent bilinguals. In elementary schools, we have 1,910, and in the secondary schools, a total of 2,124. As you can imagine, 99% of these students, their first language was Spanish, but however, we still have students that their first language are Chinese, Vietnamese, Philippine, and so on. All of these students are monitored at every single campus by an LPAC, or Language Proficiency Assessment Committee, and essentially they monitor the students at the beginning of the year, middle of year, end of year, and also every 6 weeks. And what do they cover or discuss? Academic progress, decisions with respect to testing, and so on. When a student or emergent bilingual exit the program, we monitor them for 2 years. That's our requirement. So the numbers for this year, we have a total of 29 students that actually exited the program this last year, or at the end of this year, and 115 are in the second year of monitoring. Federal requirements, the federal government requires that we also monitor third through fifth year, and we have a total of 454 students there. Why do they do that? Because that's all part of the accountability system for the federal government. We want to give you just a quick overview of where we were at, right, in 2019. So let's kind of look at third grade. Third grade math, for example. In 2017, 73% of our EBs reached approaches. 2018, 78%, and then a total of 82%, right? We were trending upwards. If you can look across that entire chart, we were trending upwards, closing the gap, and then, of course, the pandemic hit and affected all students. And as you can see now that we went from an 82% down to a 27%. Now, we keep in mind that only 25% of our students were actually assessed with STAR, or students that actually came in to be tested. Again, TEA did not allow students to be tested at home with respect to STAR. What I want to place in your heart is that we were trending upward, and that is our goal. We want to continue to trend back upwards. If you recall, on this next slide, I talked a little bit about those students that are monitored first through fifth year, and look at their academic achievement. These students that are monitored, or these students that have exited the program, are essentially, for lack of a better word, are blowing out of the water all other populations. Look at their scores, and even during the pandemic, these students are performing very, very well. Why? There's a lot of research on the power of the bilingual brain, right? The next one, the federal government requires our district to actually assess our students on their language proficiency. How are they progressing from year to year on listening, speaking, reading, and writing? That standard is 36% with respect to accountability. And as you can see the results there, spring 2019, 2020, and 2021, as to how our schools were actually reaching that 36%. So all the green that you see there represents all the campuses that actually hit 36% across the years. And so this is something to celebrate here, that even in the spring of 2020, in spring of 2021, our schools were still hitting that target in the middle of the pandemic. So kudos to the amazing work our teachers are doing and our administration. In last year, 2021, we submitted to TEA what's known as a bilingual education exception. You may know as the word as a waiver. And the reason is that we had 71 teachers in the elementary grades that were serving bilingual students. Out of our 450 plus teachers, 71 teachers were not fully certified bilingual. Why is that? Is that we have 25% of our students are bilingual, and so we find ourselves with that situation. So as a result of that, of submitting an exception to TEA, TEA requires that we spend 10% of our bilingual funding for the purpose of professional learning, so that these teachers can receive the training that is necessary, plus also pass those exams. So it's not only that they have to pass obtain a teaching certificate, they also have to pass the bilingual comprehensive exam and also the BTLPT. And that BTLPT is the toughest exam because it requires the teacher to listen, speak, read, and write in Spanish.
Mr. Trevino, I have a
yes,
question. Do you have data on how many teachers were not bilingual certified and then went through the professional development and then got bilingual certified, to see how effective we have been with those?
That's correct. So one thing that we added in addition to this year, that we took it to a whole other level, was the Bilingual Academies, because we saw that a one-shot staff development wasn't working. We did see a decline from last year of 71 down to 66 teachers for this year, but we know that with the academies, we're going to see that number really go down. That's our expectation. So this is just an overview quickly of the training that we provide. And again, just to highlight, is that bilingual ESL academies, where we have these teachers that are committed for a long-term training, right? Not a one-shot thing. So these are part of those 10% that we are required to provide. For this year, again, we are submitting, better yet, an education exception to TEA, a total of 66 teachers that are essentially providing or providing instruction to our students, but are not yet fully certified. They're certified. They're highly qualified teachers, but yet they still do not have that bilingual ESL certification. And this is new. In the year of 2021, 2022, this year, we're also submitting an ESL waiver because of the teacher shortage. We find ourselves, right now, there are 8 ELA teachers throughout the district that are not ESL certified. But again, we're working towards, for these teachers to become fully certified.
Mr.
Yes.
Trevino, when is the last year that teachers can have to be certified by?
So TEA does not, right now TEA essentially is not requiring that by certain day,
Okay.
nor in Weslaco have we made that decision that by certain day that has to be done. We are highly encouraging, highly pushing the teachers to become fully certified. But yeah, there is no deadline at this point.
So we can provide a waiver every year?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. So we're going to shift gears just a little bit. I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Trevino, and I'm looking at this here. I know I read it earlier. From this point on, and Dr. Valdez, we are no longer hiring teachers that are not bilingually certified, correct?
And that is correct. That is our goal. Let me tell you, the reason is because the assurances that we submit to TEA as part of these exceptions is that we are making all efforts to hire teachers that are certified. And these are assurances that we're giving TEA. So they do look at hiring practices. So we have to ensure that. Of course, teacher pools are limited, right, at this time. So we find ourselves in those situations.
The region at one point did not face a challenge
Correct.
in hiring bilingually certified teachers. However, when the test design for the BTLPT test changed, that changed the game for
Correct.
everyone. It is extremely challenging, and that's my theory for why, new teachers coming out of a teacher prep university program are finding it hard or challenging to to get certified in bilingual attain that certification because of the BTLPT test. It changed. They changed the test design.
Right, so a lot of us here know how to speak Spanish, no tenemos problema, right, in speaking it, but how many of us actually know how to write it, right, and be able to do all of those things completely in Spanish. So it is a challenge, and so that's why we're really focusing on that staff development, provide top quality staff development for these teachers.
And now that you said, Mr. Trevino, I know I'm going to go off on a limb a little bit here, but I know if we've mentioned like dual language programs, because in the future, yes, and even now, we need people who are bilingual.
Right.
So we start them off little when, right now in elementary with a dual language. By the time they're adults, they're fully bilingual, biliterate.
Bicultural.
But yes, there you go. So I know just to think about in the
Sure.
future, it would be awesome for Weslaco ISD to offer a dual language program, and maybe we can
Yes, and we are planning to
Brainstorm.
revisit that. We actually did meet with committees last year, and at the time, again, it was, let's hold off on this, and so, yes, we will gladly revisit those opportunities. So.
all right.
So let's shift a little bit to 2022 accountability. I'm going to go quickly through these slides. Just want to place a few things in your heart here. At the end of this past year, all districts, all campuses were rated, and this is an official rating. Everyone was rated, not rated, declared state of disaster. That was in 2021. What are we facing this year? At the end of 2022, Senate Bill 1365 requires these 4 labels. All campuses, districts are going to be labeled not rated, or unless a district or a campus earns an A, B, or a C. So that is what we're facing at the end of this year. Any campus or district that does not, or that earns an F, essentially becomes a PEG district, or a public education grant. Essentially means that the parents have the choice of taking their child to another district, to another school. And so the 2022 accountability will mirror a lot of the 2019 accountability. That's the stability the TA wants to have, because again, it wasn't stable in 2020 nor in 2021, and the federal accountability will still be in place. This just gives you a quick overview that I just want to place this in your mind, that by 2022, 2023, next year, it is in statute that the carrot is going to be pulled away further from us to be able to earn an A, B, or C. It will be pulled further away. Those cut points will be raised. But there's a lot of conversation at TA right now. Do we back off on that? Do we actually go forth on this? Just a quick overview. There are 3 domains: student achievement, which covers all-star assessments; CCMR, college military readiness, and also graduation rate. There is also school progress. How are students progressing from one year to the next? And the only point I want to make here is that the main goal this year is to show growth. We want to show growth. We know where our students are at. We need to grow from where we are at. And finally, the closing the gaps. This is domain 3. Essentially is the federal accountability. These are, and they vary. They vary as to the expectations that the federal government has to the state government. So how is student achievement? I want to end with these few thoughts here. So how is student achievement right now at Weslaco ISD? We asked ourselves 2 questions. Where is there unfinished learning, right? And what might this mean for extended learning opportunities? Are we providing everything that we can to ensure that our students are growing? So I want to end on some good news here. These next few slides, I'll only talk on this one and just kind of skim the next slides here. This is overall achievement versus norm. So we essentially are bringing in the MAP data, NWEA MAP. You've heard a lot about that. All of our students participated in MAP. It gives us a lot of data, but the data that I want to just share with you here is that the blue represents Weslaco, the gray represents norm results in 2019 for those that were tested under MAP, not just in Weslaco, outside of Weslaco, everywhere. So what is this telling us here? This essentially is a report on instructional readiness. So let me say that again. This is a report on instructional readiness, right? How ready are our students right now at this juncture, at this point, right now that they took the exam in the fall? How are they compared to 2019 data? And so you can see that our students are truly instructionally ready. What does that mean? They are ready to learn. So we need to take advantage of that. They're ready to learn. So our goal again is to ensure that everything else is in place so that they are learning, so that at the end of the year they will be successful, pass the STAR exam. So again, this is in reading. We're right there. This again represents this year compared to 2019 throughout the country. Look at math. In math, it's just we're a little farther away. We knew this wasn't any surprise. We knew that there was going to be a greater gap in math. Here is in secondary algebra, algebra 1 and algebra 2. And finally, science. You can see that our students are instructionally ready. So we need to tap into that at this time. And this is just 4 themes that you'll hear throughout the year with respect to data. Where are our students at? How are we going to maximize instructional time? We need to set realistic goals, and then, of course, focus on growth. And just some curriculum and instruction supports that we've listed here. It's not exhaustive, but it pretty much gives you an overview of what we are doing to ensure that our students are growing from right now to the end of the year. Any questions on assessment, accountability, bilingual ESL? All right. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Trevino.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Trevino. This concludes Superintendent's report for October 2019.
Thank you, Dr. Vargas.
2021, sorry. I'm thinking October 19th, yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Valdez. And we'll move on to consent agenda, item 9, consent agenda. I'll give trustees about a minute or so to look through the consent agenda, see if you want to take any action. I'll go ahead and start with Mr. Nieto.
None?
Mrs. Sustaita?
Yes, I'd like to pull out item K.
Okay. Mr. Trevino?
Item S.
S. Mr. De Los Santos? None. And Mr. Gonzalez?
None.
And I have none. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve excluding items K and S, as in Sam, I
Yes.
believe.
That's what I heard.
K and S.
K and S.
Second.
I have a motion to approve the consent agenda except for item K and S by Mr. Gonzalez and a second by Mr. Nieto.
Right.
Any discussion? We'll take it to a vote. Mrs. Sustaita?
Aye.
Mr. Trevino?
Aye.
Mr. De Los Santos?
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Aye.
Item passes. So we'll go ahead and visit Mrs. Sustaita, item K.
Yes, I'm looking for it here. I'm getting there. Okay. This item, approval to extend the consulting contract with Rosalind Vargas for part-time services. The reason why I pulled this out is because I know that we just got 2 new HR directors who are already working with HR. So I just wasn't clear as to why we still wanted to extend the contract?
The purpose for the extension would be to have Mrs. Vargas just come to enhance the systems or even put systems in place. If you recall, the forensic audit final report was provided September 20th, 2021. Her final day was the following week. She did not have the opportunity to implement those systems and tighten up the internal controls dealing with HR. And so we just need her for a few hours, maybe twice a week. It's not on a full-time basis. It's only to meet with our two new directors for human resources in order to implement those systems. She has a lot of the work that's already been done in other school districts, and so we just need her to come back because the audit report, final report was provided September 20th, and she was handling a lot of the day-to-day, not necessarily looking into and examining the audit findings. And so now, we just need her for that piece.
So essentially, there were programs and there were systems that she started to put in place. There were some things that she was addressing already as part of the requirements for the audit. And we had maybe a day, maybe 2 days to kind of brief with her, for her to kind of transition that information to us. So really, it's about information that we didn't get. And there are places where we're rolling with it, but we really don't want to start from scratch. You know, she did a whole lot of that work. We need to take what she started and where she was, and then be able to move forward from there. So, you know, a few hours a week essentially is what we're looking at. Go ahead.
And as part of it, you could see some of the audit findings were part of the systems and having them in place. So she'd be really invaluable for about, we were saying, the few hours a week, just as we continue to take care of the day-to-day issues and the week-to-week, just as we refine systems and get them in place as we move forward.
My concern is because obviously the audit a lot of it was on HR. She did come in a couple of months ago and started to refine things like you said. But I'm thinking, like you who are the new directors, would you not want to start your own system instead of somebody else's?
No, and there are systems that are not necessarily new systems. There are systems that we knew that existed, that were available, but there are procedures that she started that for us to go back and restart, it becomes a time factor. There was a lot of research and a lot of things that came into play, a lot of information that was provided that you saw through the audit that she was instrumental in gathering, and we don't have that background from her. So a lot of that is information that we need from her, work that she did to get us where we are now. And, you know, like we said, we maybe had, you know, a day, 2 days with her to be able to, for her to debrief us on this is where we are. Things like job descriptions, that she was already getting those recommendations and information and insight that she had on why those decisions were made. You know, this is where we are right now. Now we have information on what she worked on, her products, but okay, what was this thinking behind that? You know, why did we move in this direction? And for us to just go back and start over, it just makes more sense for, you know, let's get that from her. Let's find out why she made these decisions, and then we can move forward from there. So a lot of it just has to do with that back work that she did and being able to catch us up on that.
And even creating new systems that don't exist.
I believe in January, February, I see where you're coming from, because in January, February, one of those months I remember that the previous administration showed us a PowerPoint with a lot of different findings within the department. And I think it was January, February, and then came on board the consultant. Is there any way that we can kind of get a debrief as well as the board, or does she have? Did she ever provide you a presentation as far as findings, things that she saw happening within the department, things that she saw needed to be modified?
She did, but it was anecdotal, and she was implementing systems in place, but there are many that have not been implemented at all. They were non-existent. And so there's a lot of work that has to be done in HR to not replicate some of the actions that were done.
And I think if the two new HR directors would have had the time to have training, then we wouldn't need the experience of that
And it's-
other HR, but,
It's
hopefully
very
this year.
minimal.
Yeah, I
It's
think-
very minimal, that's the time that she needs to come and
Right
spend
now,
here.
we're looking at roughly 10 hours a week. And I think before it was far greater than that. Right now, we're looking at like a Tuesday, Thursday, maybe from like 9 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Right, and it's only as needed. It's not for, 6 months. It's very minimal.
Until we know we're caught up to where, questions that we have, information that we need, where we know, okay, we're good, we got it, we can go from here. So that's pretty much what it is just to be able to get that background information that we didn't have the time to gather from her when we came on board.
For me, and please do not take this the wrong way at all, but for me, it goes back to, and again, please, no disrespect to you guys, okay? But to me, it goes back to hiring people, with experience. And that's where I lack the confidence in some of the progress that we claim, moving forward and so forth. And again, I'm happy for you guys. That we hired you guys. You guys, I mean, from the time I met you guys have been awesome. But it's like hiring a head coach.
Yes.
And then asking one of these guys or somebody, hey, stick around so you can help us. That's not the customary way to do things.
Well, and with all due respect, Coach Savino, I understand where you're coming from, but in any position that you take, there is a transition period.
Yes.
There's that period where you kind of got to get that back information. And to be frank, really there wasn't anybody permanently in that position coming on board that we might be able to say, this is the outgoing director, let's tap that outgoing director and be able to have that transition.
Yes.
We didn't have the advantage of that. All we have is the consultant and the work she was able to do. So it's just part of that transition and being able to make sure that we don't have any holes or any gaps from where we're starting with things that, the ball that was already rolling before we came on board.
No, and again, please, no disrespect whatsoever. It's a system.
No, none at all.
It's a
Take it,
business
yes.
that we're running here.
Of course.
So that's something that when I saw this, that's the only thing that kept coming to my head was, okay, well, to a certain extent, we're doing it to ourselves. And, I don't have a problem, as you guys explained, knowing that department is the one hit the most severely with this audit.
Right.
And knowing that, I'm sure, you guys have all the, to bring in your own team, develop your own systems, and do whatever we need to do to move that department forward, because they cause a lot of harm to a lot of people in this community.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think, I think we'll never understand fully how much we really impacted. I know we had a visitor here last week or last meeting, one of those meetings, and she shared a little bit of how it impacted her. So, if that's what you guys need, to get this thing going, we'll do that. But I just felt that it was important to voice it out there, because that to me, that just goes back to some of the lack of confidence that I have, but not towards you guys. Again, you guys, no disrespect whatsoever to you guys. It's just a system for me.
I do want to add, however, if I may add, we're talking school business, we're talking school district operations. A human resource department in a school system is quite different than any other entity, any other organization. The applicant pool and the job description called for applicants who had a master's degree and principal certification, a certified individual in school administration, preferred. So if you consider the pool of candidates that were screened, that's a unique pool. You are not talking about private sector as far as in business, where you have a human resource administrator or director who specifically studies and obtains a bachelor's of business administration with a specialization in human resources or management. So in schools, when you think of school districts, they're unique. And so you're not going to have an example of a head coach or who's in a varsity assistant coach and then becomes a head coach, who's been in that, that's their wheelhouse. That's their expertise. So in this case, you have, in almost every school district, I would venture to say, you have an individual, an administrator, who wishes to move up in the school system, who has the qualifications. However, human resource is a very different type of department. School principals, a lot of principals go on to be your HR directors, and they have experience when it comes to the hiring, recruiting, retaining employees, and growing their employees. But it's at the campus level. When you move up as a campus principal to pursue higher educational leadership, particularly in HR, it's very different. And so when you're looking at the system, having that systems thinking, school-wide, school district-wide, it's very different. Now you're looking at, could you have that blend of a former campus principal that I can think of that had her school principalship certification plus a BBA? You know, that's your unicorn in school business. However, most of the time you're going to have candidates like this coach that they're campus principals but don't have that specific human resource management BBA. So, you know, I just want the team of us to understand
I understand perfectly.
that concept, right? In school business, it's kind of different.
I understand perfectly, Doctor, and again, for me, and just like yourself, I've been in several districts. I've seen effective HR programs or departments, and I've obviously witnessed a non-effective here in WISD. So, again, no disrespect whatsoever. And for me, I mean, that's what I needed a voice, and that's what I'm here for.
And I'm gonna vouch for them too, being excellent administrators, but their focus this year, Mr. Buttermer was preparing for principal for the beginning of the year. Ms. Zavala over Mary Hope was preparing for assistant principal. So all their focus was on that. Now their focus is in HR, and with a little guidance, a little direction and training over the next few years, they'll do excellent, you know?
Thank you.
And for myself, you know, I think this is a decision to move to help strengthen our department, you know, and you know, I'm sure Dr. Valdez and our HR directors, you know, see the benefit, the value of this part-time work to finish some of the process that were, and policies that were started. So, you know, you've got my full support for that.
I had a question, ma'am. Do they have, I was going to the superintendent, do they have, as far as, we're gonna look at the consultant and bring them on, of course, I see that, as far as the transition and information that you didn't have, that's a little bit more detailed than from what was in the audit. But other than changing policies, guidelines, the way things are working within the department, do they have authority also on staff? Because usually, like directors, when they come in, do they have also that authority too, to see what's working, what isn't working, and things like that?
Yes, they are
So if
looking
we're gonna
at the
completely reform that
duties,
department, we have to
responsibilities,
look at all
yes.
aspects, that's what I'm trying to say, and I would like them to, I think myself, I would, in my opinion, I would love to support them on that they have that full authority to revamp whatever they need to revamp.
We're looking at every facet, Mr. De Los
Yeah,
Santos.
they are.
Thank you.
Thank
I'll
you.
entertain a motion for item K, approval to extend the consultant contract with Rosalind Vargas for part-time services.
So move.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Nieto and a second by Mr. Gonzalez. Any further discussion? We'll take it to a vote. Mr. Nieto?
Aye.
Mrs. Ustaita?
Based on the recommendation, aye.
Mr. Trevino?
Aye.
Mr. De Los Santos?
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Aye.
Motion passes. We'll move on to item S on the consent agenda. Mr. Trevino?
My question here, I noticed the price differences.
Yes, we do have Mr. Abel Aguilar, who's been working feverishly on this item.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Dr. Valdez, members of the board. Very good question, Coach Trevino, on the price reference, because that's also a question that we've had. And really what it's going to boil down to, it's going to be the scope of the work, that's going to be done. Now, we've been vetting out several discussions between our instructional strategists, our high school principals, Our principals are here. We've gone back and forth, really looking at everything, make sure the accreditation is in place, make sure they're going to have certified teachers, and make sure that they meet the needs of our students. So when we're looking at, if you do, in your packet that you have there, and sorry it was received late because we were receiving some modifications from the company, and as well going back and forth with the language with legal pending final review. But if you look at after the, I want to say it's addendum 1, and it'll look like this page somewhat. I'll say addendum 1, and it's going to give you the different tier options. So that just gives you an example right there. So for example, if you're looking at the scope of work and pricing for Graduation Alliance, you have tiers 2 and 3. So you have the tier 2 where you're looking, and we're looking at a range between the 40 to 99, and that's where that price comes up at 75 per student. Now, if we were to jump into tier 3, the scope of services multiplies and increases. And if we look at that, you're looking at the academic coaching, online tutoring, academic services, and it gives you a wide array of explanations there. If you turn the page, that's where you see the price increase per student. After we were looking at the multiple tiers, we made a determination as a group with the principals, instructional strategists, CNI, that our best option for our students was going to be tier 2. That we could still meet the services because we're not completely letting go of the students. Our campuses are still going to be involved with that. Our instructional strategists are still going to be involved. But what they're going to be receiving without causing that disruption to our teachers and other students' schedules, we felt tier 2 was going to be the option. Now, based on prices that we received with others, those were, you have some information on there, and those are basically a larger scope of work on what they're providing.
So that was, I mean, I know you guys are the ones that do all the research and so forth on this, but my question for me was, are we making sure that we're getting the correct material here just because of the price difference that it's just incredible here? Or did we submit the correct RFQs or RFPs or whatever was submitted to request these prices? Because I don't, by looking at this, Pearson and Apex, did they really know what they were bidding for compared to Graduation Alliance? There's just a significant price difference.
That is correct, and I do have the strategists that we're working at. Let me give you Apex, for example. We do work with Apex, but we were not receiving the information that we had the certified teachers per se, that they were available. It was going to be more asynchronous type of instruction, so that's not something we were looking at until we got towards the end. The reason we didn't go for the RFQs because the pricing that we were receiving from Graduation Alliance was below $50,000.
Okay.
That was the amount that we were receiving based on how we're going to prorate the remainder of the months and how many students that we have.
Okay.
So that's the reason that amount came lower than $50,000, and that's why we went out for 3 quotes. And those are the quotes that we received based on the phone calls and the discussions and so forth. But we did have those discussions with our high school principals. They had an opportunity to look at the course catalogs. Our instructional strategists looked at it through their content lens to make sure that this is going to be offered. And again, we're not going to release the students completely. They're still Weslaco ISD students, but they're going to be receiving that instruction through accredited teachers through Graduation Alliance.
Okay, Mr. Aguilera, again, I just want to make sure we're getting the quality and everything because the price difference, and make sure that everything was
Yes, sir.
written correctly there. That was it for me.
Yes,
I have a question, and I was just wondering, because it says it's going to be paid for with the local maintenance fund, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I was looking at, maybe wishful thinking, are there any kind of grants? I was looking through the TEA grants, and there's a whole bunch of grants. Do you think there's going to be any kind of grants or any kind of money coming up that may be able to pay for virtual learning? Do you know anything about anything?
We haven't extensively gone through that, through the
Okay.
grants that are out there. There could be that availability of the funds, but we have to be honest with you, we haven't gone through
Okay.
that route.
I
But
did
those
scroll through
students
today.
that
Oof,
qualify
a whole
under
bunch.
Senate Bill 15 will receive the ADA.
We're still going to be receiving the ADA.
Right.
But not paying for this curriculum, though. This is the 43,000, right? Like, this is something separate.
Correct.
So that's what I was saying, some kind of grant that can pay for the curriculum of virtual learning.
So if we're looking at the funding, if our students, depending on the number that enroll and continue through the program, then we're still going to collect the ADA for those students.
Okay.
And right now, we're between 71, 73 students for the high schools. For middle schools, we're going to go in district with teachers, and our Human Resources Department have been working through that, so we're going to be able to work it out with our middle schools. And of course, right now, we have our active program going on with our elementaries.
That's what I was gonna ask, what are they doing right now with virtual, in the virtual academy, if we don't have this yet?
As far as the middle schools, we
Right.
haven't started because we had put a pause in the secondary
That's
until October 25th.
Until October 25, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Aguilar.
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
I'll entertain a motion for item S, approval of graduation alliance.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Los Santos, second by Mr. Gonzalez. Any further discussion? We'll take it to a vote. Mr. Nieto.
Aye.
Mrs. Ustaita.
Aye.
Mr. Trevino.
Aye.
Mr. Los Santos.
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Aye.
Motion passes. We'll go on to item 10, discussion items. Start letter A, interim financial report for the 1 month ended September 30th, 2021. Dr. Valdez.
The interim financial report is submitted to inform the Board of Trustees of the district's financial status. Reporting this evening is Mr. Andres Sanchez, Assistant Superintendent for Business and Finance.
Andres, give me a second. Dr. Valdez, can you
Yes.
just make sure on those companies that donated, made the donations
Oh,
to the,
okay.
can you send them a thank you notice,
sir.
please?
Yes, will do.
Sorry.
Dr. Valdez, Dr. Rodriguez, members of the board. This is the report for the first month of the fiscal year, September 2021. Our revenues, as budgeted, the local revenues are $26,317,000. State revenues, $136,389,000. And the federal revenues are $14,411,000 for a total of $177,119. For the month of September, we did not have any tax collections to report as revenues. We did get tax collections, and you'll see the report shortly. But as part of the governmental accounting procedures, we have to recognize the first 60 days of tax collections as part of the prior year. So we already accrued those revenues in last year. So when we collect them, we just offset them against the receivable we have. So there's nothing to report as revenues. Next slide. Okay, then this shows the revenues broken down, which I mentioned already, the budget. The actual amount received for local revenues is only $12,368, which I mentioned there's no property taxes in there. The state revenues is $13,961,000. Federal revenues, $9,500. And this one, the main revenue source here is the breakfast and lunch meals, but the ones for September come into October, so there's not much to report here yet. Total revenues received at $13,983,000. Compared to the budget, we have only collected 7.89% on the revenues. Next slide. Thank you. On the expenditures, as we've done it before, we have grouped them in 5 categories. The first one is the instructional related, and we have budgeted $111,267,000. We have expended or encumbered $3,512,000, which represents 3.16%. Instructional support, $24,897,000 as revenue. We have expended, as budget, expenditures is $24,897,000. Expended or encumbered, that means the actual payments or purchase orders, is $3,777,000, which represents 15.17%. Administration, a budget of $12,888,000. We have expended or encumbered $1,570,000, which represents 12.19%. District-wide support, a budget of $21,966,000. We have expended or encumbered $2,163,000, which represents 9.85%. And for debt service, it's a budget of $2,085,000. We have expended $84,638, which represents so far the payment on the scoreboard. That is a payment that is due in September and in March. That is why the payment is showing now. The rest of the payments come until February and August. And that is 4% of the budget. Total budget for expenditures is $173,105,000. Actual expended or encumbered is $11,108,000, which represents 6.42%. The next slide involves the reconciliation that we have of our expenditures. The expenditure that the board approved in September, some budget amendments. One was to roll forward the technology special fund of $15,499, and also the roll forward purchase orders for athletics and technology of $215,434. That total amount is $230,933, which together with, next slide, those amounts together with the original budget of expenditures of $172,874,591 shows a total of $173,105,524, which is the amount that I mentioned before. The last two slides that you have on your report, not part of this report. Do you have any questions on the report? I know it's very fast. This is the first month. There's not really a lot of information in there. First month of expenditure, some adjustment that we have done for the month of September.
Do we get that money back on that summer feeding program 2021? We spent $320,500. Do we get those funds back since it's
Which part are you talking about?
on the last page on your
The one that is not showing?
yes,
Right.
the one that's not on there.
Right. No, this part
Budgeted
is,
expenditures include,
this is on the prior year report. It should not be here. That's what is not showing in the report now.
To disregard the
Yeah,
last three
disregard those,
slides?
The last two pages that you have in your printed report, yes.
To disregard them, yes.
We missed leaving them out. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez. And next item, item B, acknowledgement of Hidalgo County Tax Office Collection Report for September 2021, current taxes and delinquent taxes. Mr. Sanchez.
Yes. For September 30, 2021, from the current levy, there were no taxes collected because the tax bills hadn't gone out yet. But from the delinquent taxes, the tax office collected $159,611,000. There has some modifications to the roll of 2,417, decrease. Altogether represents 4.16%. The prior year, September 2020, the collections plus adjustment was 4.98%. That is 0.82% lower than last year. That is the report on delinquent taxes. Rollback taxes, we had nothing collected, and there's a levy of $29,533. The next agenda item will present our report for last year, the whole thing, but this September is short. But we did have collections. Earlier, I mentioned that these have been recognized in the prior years. That's why I didn't recognize them in the financial report. I know that's kind of confusing, but that is the report for September.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez.
Thank you.
That include item C, Mr. Sanchez? That include item C
Yeah,
on that?
that's it.
Okay.
No, that's B only.
Okay.
See, Mr. Villarreal is here.
So C, presentation of annual tax collection report for fiscal year 2020-2021, September 1st, 2020 through August 31st, 2021 by the Hidalgo County Tax Office.
Good evening. It's an honor to be here before you. Thank you for inviting me, Mr. Sanchez, board members, Mr. Vice President, Dr. Rodriguez, Superintendent Valdez. I'm here to make the presentation for the annual report for September 1st, 2020 through August 31st, 2021. I believe you have the report in front of you, okay? On the tab number 1, normally it'd probably take me about, okay, number 4? Okay, I don't have, well, then I'll go by this. Might take me 5 minutes to make this presentation, but it took us a full year to make it successful. So we're very proud of the collections that we did for this year. I think on tab number 4, page number 4, we do have On tax collections, current, delinquent, and rollback totals, the total collected for 2020, 2021, we collected $27,400,131.47. The disbursements, collections, fees, commissions, and costs for a total dispersed of $27,400,131.47. If you go to the next page, part 2, which is, I believe, we have it. Yep. Page number 12, the next, under where it says add, 2020 current collections. If you go to the middle area. Yes, page 13. Okay. Page number 13. If you go to the middle area with the bolded current collections to date, under the 2019-2020, this is the base amount without penalties and interest. We collected $24,037,947.47. This year we collected $25,061,474.44. We collected over last year's $1,023,526.97. Last year's percentage of collections was 95.38. This year's 96.28, 0.90 above last year. So it was a great year, even though we had the COVID. We did not close our offices. So we have 8 offices throughout the county. At one time, we did close 4 and allowed the people to distribute to the other areas. So just to be more careful. But overall, I think our taxpayers and of course working at our office, we were able to make this possible. If you look at the next page, page 14, it's just a 5-year tabulation of the percentages. For 2016, we had 94.78, 2017, 95.40, 2018, 95.24, 2019, 95.38, and 2020, 96.28%. So the next is just the pie, where it tells you that we left very little for as far as the current collections. And under tab number 3, the Lincoln attorneys are here. Mr. Gutierrez is here, so he'll make the presentation. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer any. One thing that I want to let you know is that normally we send out tax statements the first week of November 1st. As of right now, if you go to the www.hidalgocountytax.org, it's already in our system. If you want to see, like, well, how much am I going to pay this year? Hopefully, by the end of the week or weekend, we might send out the single statements. There's about approximately, I send out about 350,000 overall throughout the county. But in this case, they're already out there, so anybody can pay online if they like. Normally, we already received a couple of payments. People are ready. There's people that would call us, I want to go ahead and put it under escrow. Can I go ahead and, they don't want to spend it, I guess, somewhere else. So, but it is good that they're paying. You know, our main focus is to make sure that we bring the revenues to our kids of this school district and the whole county. You know, so if you have any questions, like I said, I'll be more than happy to answer.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us, Mr. Vega. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Excuse me.
Next item, discussion item D, presentation of Purdue, Brandon, Fielder, Collins, and Mott LLP Delinquent Tax Attorneys Firm of the Delinquent Tax Collection Activity Report for the period from September 1st, 2020 through August 31st, 2021.
Good evening, Dr. Valdez and honorable members of the board. For the record, my name is Hiram Gutierrez. I'm a partner with Purdue, Brandon, Fielder, Collins, and Mott, your delinquent tax firm. First of all, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to be here before you. I'm here to present you with your delinquent tax collection report for fiscal 2020-21, that being the period of September 1st, 2020 through August 31st, 2021. First of all, the delinquent tax program for Weslaco ISD is designed with an emphasis on working with your taxpayers to resolve their delinquent tax problem. To that end, bear with me for a second. And just scroll. Yeah. To that end, our professional, our courteous staff here at Hidalgo County Call Center has handled over approximately 4,500 phone contacts involving delinquent tax accounts in Weslaco ISD. We also send notices of delinquency, bilingual delinquency notices to your taxpayer. During this period, we have mailed over 10,800 notices of delinquency to Weslaco ISD. When the phone contacts and the properties, mailings do not have the desired effect, we also contact taxpayers at their homes, or if it's a business personal property account, we'll contact the taxpayer at the place of business. During this period, we have conducted just over 300 property inspections. Once we contact your taxpayers, they're not always able to pay in full. So when that's the case, we do enter into payment agreements with your taxpayers. During this period, we've entered into 56 payment agreements involving over $96,000 in base tax owed to the school district. And as a last recourse, that is, if the phone contacts, the mailings, and the personal visits do not have the desired effect, we do proceed to litigation only as a last recourse. And during this period, we have filed 117 petitions or interventions involving over $1,288,000 in base tax owed to the school districts. Once we do take a judgment, we still try to contact the taxpayers. We let them know that it's not too late to try to resolve their delinquency. We tried phone contacts. We send additional notices. We put notices in the property that's being foreclosed upon. The reason we do this is once we proceed to tax sale, it adds additional cost. You've got sheriff's costs, you've got notices cost, easily another $750 in additional costs just because the property gets put up for sale. So we try everything that we can to try to get the taxpayer to come in, pay in full, or enter into a payment agreement. However, during this period, we have put up 16 properties up for tax sale. The results of those were 3 of them resulted in payment agreements or payments in full involving over $7,200 in base tax owed to the school district. 2 properties were struck off. That means that no winning bids were received, so the taxing entities now effectively become the owners of those properties. That involved over $8,000 in base tax owed to the school district. And 11 properties were sold, bringing in over $55,000 in base tax owed to the school district. Of course, we also represent the school district in bankruptcies. If one of your taxpayers filed for bankruptcy, we filed a claim on your behalf. During this period, we filed 5 new claims involving over $9,300 in base tax to the school district. If the bankruptcy court does not award collection fees, we do not get paid. The school district gets paid what it is owed, and we simply do not get paid. We do it at no cost. Of course, all our efforts are geared to one goal, and that is collecting your delinquent taxes. And we're very proud to announce that during this period, we have brought over $1,167,000 in base tax to the school district, and an additional $543,000 in penalties and interest, for a grand total of $1,710,000 for the school district. The last page of the report, page 5, shows a comparison between last year and this fiscal year. During this fiscal year, we have collected 28.89% of your delinquent tax roll, compared to last fiscal year, a very difficult year, of course, of 20.26%, an increase of 8.63% of the delinquent tax roll that was collected this fiscal year. In dollars of base tax, last year, base tax were $767,000 in base tax. This year, $1,167,000, just a little over $400,000 in base tax of additional collections this fiscal year. Well, that concludes my report, and I'd like to open it up for any questions you may have.
Doing a great job.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gutierrez.
Thank you very much, and y'all have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll go on to item E, announcement of continuing education credit for board members. Dr. Vargas?
This is a requirement from the State Board of Education. So Dr. Rodriguez, you'll need to announce how each local board of trustee, the name of each board member who has completed the required continuing education, who has exceeded the required hours of continuing education, and if anyone's deficient in the required continuing education as so noted. And you have the listing there, Dr. Rodriguez, to make the announcement.
Okay. I'll be announcing the total hours that each board member has achieved. Armando Cuellar, 7.5 hours. Marcos de los Santos, 10 hours. Andrew Gonzalez, 5 hours. Isidoro Nieto, 25.5 hours. Myself, Jaime Rodriguez, 12.25 hours. Jacqueline Sustaita, 13.5 hours. And Jesse Trevino, 2.5 hours, but Mr. Trevino attended the TASB conference in September of 2021 and is pending credit for sessions attended. Any discussion on that? I'm good with that. So we'll go ahead and move on to item 11. Discussion and possible action items. Item A, discussion and possible action for the board to consider approval to change the regular board meeting scheduled on December 21st, 2021. Dr. Valdez?
Regular board meetings are normally scheduled now for the third Tuesday of the month. So in December, the third Tuesday of the month is December 21st, 2021, which is the last day prior to the winter break. Administration is recommending that the December 21st, 2021 board meeting be rescheduled to one of the following dates. And so it's whichever one y'all would like or prefer. We have Thursday, December 16th, 2021, and then we have Monday, December 20th, 2021 is the two options. And we thought that the preferred date would be on that Thursday.
I'll make a motion to go ahead and reschedule it for Thursday, December 16th.
Second.
I have a motion to change the regular board meeting scheduled on December 21st, 2021 to Thursday, December 16th, 2021. Motion by Mrs. Sustaita, second by Mr. De Los Santos. Any discussion on that?
I will not be able to attend that Thursday.
The only discussion I have, do we still have them at 5:30 or do we go back to 6 o'clock? That way, you know, I know I don't work, but you all work, you know? I can be here anytime, but some of you, you know,
I
sometimes
would appreciate
it's
6.
difficult.
That would be better. 6 would be better, but I work around whatever schedule, but 6 would
I mean,
be more
it's up to you
accommodating,
all.
I think.
Mr. Sepulveda, is that something that needs to be approved, the change of time? So that needs to be an agenda item that brought up to the board? Okay. Maybe we can have that at whatever next meeting we might have.
Okay.
Yep.
Will do.
Can y'all just, since we're still on discussion, I know the motion has been made, but can y'all have it on the 20th and I can attend? I know
Okay,
you
I'll
have-
rescind,
I
I'll
know you have-
rescind the motion for Thursday. Right?
You won't be able to attend.
That's our
You
vacation.
won't? I thought he said he did.
Vacation.
Ms. Jackie,
Everybody's on vacation.
Ms. Jackie,
We're off on, the last day would be 21st to work.
First for you, is the day before your last day.
you're on vacation.
That would be the day before the last day.
It's okay, leave it for the 16th, Ms. Jackie. He has family plans. It's okay. If I can
Okay.
make it, I'll come.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so we've got the motion by Mrs. Sustaita and a second by Mr. De Los Santos. We'll take it to a vote. Mr. Nieto?
Aye.
Mrs. Sustaita?
Aye.
Mr. Trevino?
Aye.
Mr. De Los Santos?
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Aye.
Motion passes. Item B, presentation, discussion, and possible action to hire Flores and Elias Prada PLLC to conduct storm damage evaluations for the school district's buildings. Dr. Valdez?
Yes, this was an item requested to be put on the agenda by Mr. Marcos de los Santos.
Good evening. While he sets this up, I'm going to hand this out to you to save time and make your time more efficient, so I can respect it. It's our qualifications, a summary of our firm's qualifications and my resume. So that way, I don't have to spend a lot of time on that as I jump right into what we're going to talk about.
Thank you.
You guys want to stand up and stretch for a second?
Thank you.
And my name is Marco Flores, Madam Superintendent, Board Trustees, thank you for having me here. I'm going to try to go through this as quick as I can and leave time for questions, because I know you've been here a while and you still have more to do. But I'm here to talk about Hurricane Hannah. I'm the owner of Flores and Playa Esprada. This law firm only mission is to help people who get involved with storm claims and their claims are either underpaid or denied. And so our job is to make sure that we get the policyholder all the benefits they're entitled to, because these policies are really expensive. You guys pay for every year, and you're entitled to make sure you get every benefit available. So let me just go through this. A lot of my clients feel like this when they go through the claims process. I don't know if you have a point of contact who handles this, but the reason this is happening and it feels like a maze when you go through these claims is because the policies have changed over the past 10 years. And so what happens is every year there are things happening, changes to your policies that you have no control of. And these things make it harder and harder to get paid on these claims, because sometimes things happen that require the insurance company to make a really large payment. And so they get together every year and they figure out maybe there's some exclusions that can protect us in these situations, make it harder to get through this maze to get paid. And so my job is to figure all that stuff out. And so some examples are they make you file disputes in states other than Texas, even though you live in Texas. And there's lots of things my clients have been through that I just have to educate them on, and I'm going to do a little bit of that today. But basically, you end up filing your claim, and we all just hope for the best because we have no control over what's going to happen. You don't get to write the policy. You don't get to negotiate the policy. We all just get our policies and kind of cross your fingers when you file a claim that you're going to get paid. And I don't know what the specifics are right now for the hurricane claim. One of my asks is to look at the documents to see what has been done, because eventually we're going to grade their homework, and that's one of the things we like to do today. We need to find out where you paid for all of your damages. And if they didn't pay for all the damages, then they breached their policy with you. So one of the things I'd like to do is evaluate what has been done to find out if the school district has been paid for all of their damages, because these storms, it's an opportunity, if you have the damage, to get off balance sheet funding to the school to defer maintenance on your buildings for a generation. And you shouldn't have to go out for bond or go out for loans or take money from your budget to do that, because those benefits are already available to you. And it's up to experts like me to find out if you qualify for those benefits or not. You know, some of the things these insurance companies also need to do, aside from just doing what their policy says, is there's rules written by the state legislature that are very protective of policyholders. Because they know that policyholders can't go out and hire a lawyer and pay them $500 an hour when they don't know what the outcome is going to be. Okay, so they put these rules in place to make sure that insurance companies are acting in good faith and to make sure that they're operating under certain deadlines. It shouldn't be going on for months. You know, you submit the paperwork, they should make a decision within a certain amount of time, and if they don't, these rules call them to task, and if they violate some of these rules, they're going to have to pay late fees and attorney's fees on top of the property damage. So again, how do you know if you were paid for your damages? How do you know if they violated the insurance code? Well, I'd like to grade their homework, and that's what my firm does. And the people you want grading their homework is going to be subject matter experts, and not just lawyers in general, but lawyers who specialize in storm damage claims, and that is all we do. And so it's not only the lawyers at my firm, but it's the experts that we bring in to take a look at these. Experts with hurricane-specific knowledge, meteorologists to tell you what happens when certain types of winds come in and hit buildings in certain angles, experts who know about different types of roofs. You probably have roofs that are metal, flat roofs, TPO, which is like that white spongy material, maybe some shingles, and so you have to have experts who can identify damage, because once you identify damage, that's what triggers coverage, and that's what my team does. It's not what I want to happen in the case. These are expert-driven cases. And so if the expert tells me, hey, Marco, they actually were treated very reasonable and those damages are legitimate and they don't need to be paid anymore, then we move on. But it costs you nothing to have us take a look under the hood and to see if anything else should have been paid. What makes us subject matter experts? My firm and I have handled over 12,000 of these claims, from someone's 1,200 square foot home to school districts that are insured for hundreds of millions of dollars like you guys. We've recovered millions of dollars for our clients who otherwise would have had to go out and get loans, take money from different areas, and just gone through financial strain when they really just needed someone to really dig into the policy to figure out if they're owed this money or not. Again, I told you this before, but we're almost 100% devoted to storm claims, so we are the experts in the region who do this. I just wanted to show you this real quick because the experts understand that you're not always going to see storm damage just by looking at it with your naked eye. Sometimes you have to take some samples, do some testing on certain roofing materials because, for instance, I guarantee you there's some roofs like this in the district, and they're flat roofs with a white TPO material that goes on top. And lots of times the wind will get underneath there can be wind debris, and it'll damage some of the structure underneath, but you can't see it until you test for it and you take some test squares. And once you find that, that's going to trigger coverage on this claim. But these insurance adjusters, it's not all their fault. You know, during a catastrophe like a hurricane, they're spread very thin. Sometimes they bring in adjusters from out of state, and they just don't have the time to properly look for everything on every building. But, you know, that's how we level the playing field, by bringing in our experts, because, you know, we have to trust they're making the right decision. But if there's not an insurance adjuster on the board, you're really not going to know if they're doing their job or not. And so that's where we come in. I just want to briefly share with you some story, or at least one story of a large client who came in. Their claim was denied. This storm was actually a hail and wind claim, but the insurance company told him, not only do you have no damage, but hail didn't even hit your property, so we owe you $0. And I knew someone on their board, and they came to see me and said, this feels kind of strange, would you at least check it out? Long story short, we brought in a meteorologist. We had witnesses who had pictures of the hail, you know, because people take videos when that happens, and we got this board millions of dollars on a claim that was going to be $0, and they were going to have to assess all of their members to pay for all the roofs on those structures. So, you know, insurance companies are not evil. I'm not here to bash them, but, you know, sometimes they are in a little bit of a hurry to get these claims closed, and it's not fair to the policyholders when that happens. So my plan here is I would like to have our firm retained by the district because it costs you nothing. You don't have to budget anything to bring me on board, because first of all, if we investigate damages and find nothing more than what they paid for, we'll tell you that, you move on, at least you know you've been treated fairly. But if we find damages that weren't covered, which is very common in really large losses like this, then the Texas legislature wrote in the law that says if the insurance company breached their contract, they're on the hook for your attorney's fees. So you guys don't have to budget for anything. If we resolve this claim, we get 2 checks. One check to the district to make the repairs that needs to be made, and another check to cover your attorney's fees. So there's 0 risk to bringing us on to take a look at this. Briefly, I just want to talk about your policy, because I like to think of the policy as sort of like a lemon, and your benefits are inside there, okay? And so ideally, you know, you're trying to squeeze it to get the benefits. Typically, the insurance company is going to give you some amount of money because most people don't challenge it. 85 to 95% of the people who get a decision from the insurance company just say, well, you guys are the experts, and they move on, okay? But the other 10% who respectfully want to have that homework checked, they usually get paid a little more. And it's a business model the insurance companies use because they know they rarely ever get called out on it. So anyway, we come in, and basically my job is to dig into that policy and look at the exclusions, look at the coverages, look at any endorsements, and figure out how can we maximize the recovery here so you guys can recover the most juice from this policy, because it's too important for school districts because their budget is strained already. And so if you can get these extra benefits that you're actually entitled to, then that is going to alleviate the burden on a lot of the maintenance you guys have to do every year and how you have to pull those funds. Again, I talked about this briefly, but you guys know lawyers don't work for free. But the good thing is the legislature wrote in the law that says if there is something the insurance company missed, they are mandated by law to cover the attorney's fees. Now, we have to fight for a certain amount of the attorney's fees, but you guys will never have to budget for anything out of pocket for what we do. Even the money we spend to investigate it, if it turns out there's no additional damage of what's been paid, you owe me nothing. Those are expenses I front for the district. And at the end of the day, our hope is that we recover benefits that are basically off-balance sheet funding that becomes available to the school for asset maintenance and deferment for a generation. My hope is that, like we've made other schools look and other boards, you guys look like heroes to the people you represent. And this is something, my legacy here to the school was, we were able to re-roof this place for the next 20, 30 years. Briefly, this is a picture of my family because some people want to know, well, who are we hiring? Like, who is this guy? It's the first night I've ever seen him for a lot of you guys. So briefly, I wanted to tell you, I grew up in Alice, Texas, so I'm a Coyote. My wife is from West Texas. I come from a soccer family. My kids love and play soccer, and we travel around going to games. And so I just wanted you guys to know that I grew up in South Texas, and I understand some of what you guys are going through. My mother was a teacher for 30 years. My father was in politics most of his life as a public servant down there in Jim Wells County, and so it's just nice to help out people in the area. And again, I come in here because your focus shouldn't be on fighting with insurance companies. Your focus should be on your students, and I don't know any of you personally, but I imagine some of you are serving here today because you care about the growth, development, and well-being of the students in your district, and you should be focusing on that and, basically delegate things like this to people who are experts to get it done for you. And that's me kind of storming through the slideshow to respect your time. I am here. If you have any questions, I hope I covered, everything pretty quickly for you guys.
I do have a question.
Yes.
I asked for Mr. Flores and his firm to come and present to us because some of our previous agenda items were that we have a lot of roofs that need to get repaired and millions of dollars that we're looking to spend. And I know that I heard that your firm was working with multiple districts to get evaluations for Hurricane Hannah. And I figured this would be a good option to hear out this firm and see what they have to offer. And also to take one last look at what damages we may have that we may have missed, that we may still have claims for, especially if it comes at no cost to the district, before we go out there for loans and put more burden on our taxpayers. And so the thing is also working with different districts and at no cost to get an evaluation, to me, sounded like a really good deal. And so that's why I asked for him to come out here and present to the board and see what everyone else thought, and ask questions.
What other school districts are you evaluating
So
here in the Valley?
just in the Valley, we've evaluated, well, I have to be careful because some of this is confidential, but I will tell you, there are some school districts we evaluated, and at least one of them we thought was paid reasonably. So we told them, we don't think you should dispute this. You've been treated, maybe, a few $1,000s, but that wasn't a big deal for how big their claim was. We are actively representing Hidalgo, and that process has just started. So we are just starting to kind of investigate, so we don't know how that's going to turn out. But I actually informally consult with a lot of school districts in Texas to where they don't even have to formally retain us. I've actually helped navigate them through the claims process so that they get paid on the front end, and they didn't have to wait to bring me in, so we sort of guided them through the process. So I do that a lot with school districts too, and I just become sort of a free resource for these school boards. When things like this pop up, they'll have their risk manager or maintenance person reach out to me and say, hey, would you mind come checking this out, or we're going to renew our policy, and would you mind taking a look at our policy to make sure that we have the right kind of coverage, because it's a special language that these insurance companies use and put into their policies.
I have a few questions for you.
Yes, sir.
Are you the only firm that does this?
Oh, no, there's other firms who do this type of law in Texas.
So my second question would be to you, Mr. Sepula. If we were to move forward, if we were to move forward, let's just say we move forward with accepting this term, is it done correctly? If there's other companies like his. Right, but we didn't go out for any type of qualifications. We don't need to. Okay, that's one. The other would be, we had an assessment done about 2 years ago, maybe 3, on all our roofs. A majority of our roofs are fairly old, probably 15 plus, 20 plus. So I know wear and tear is not covered. And so my question is, how do you determine hail damage when we didn't have much hail during Hurricane Hannah? We had a lot more rain, a lot of rising water, which is totally different. And when you look at, I know we didn't have one, we didn't file a claim because we have a $100,000 deductible, and then on a named storm like Hannah, it's 5%. So depending on the property, the building value of that property, it could be over $500,000, depending on the amount we have per property. So my question is, how do you determine it so that if we move forward as a group, at no cost to us, I know if there is a claim to be filed, you're gonna get probably half, the school district gets whatever, and then you get that from whatever the check the insurance company is gonna provide us. So how would you check for hail damage associated with Hannah in the sense of, how do you know it wasn't there before, I guess, number one, and wear and tear?
So this is a wind event for Hurricane Hannah. It's not a hail claim. That's just a lot of the cases I end up getting.
Okay.
But this is a wind event only. So we would have experts checking for wind damage only. And you're right about wear and tear. That is normally an exclusion. But if the insurance company took your premiums and they decided they were going to insure your property, then they're still on the hook for that. All roofs have wear and tear if they're a month old. And so they had an opportunity to do an underwriting process and come out here and say, hey, Weslaco, these two schools, the roof is way too old, we're not going to insure those, so we're not going to take money on those. But any building they took your premium on, the building's either insured or it's not. And so I haven't looked at the policy, so that's something I would want to do, is look at the policy, see how they're going to apply the deductibles. You're right, sometimes a named storm is higher, but I would look all that, and that'd be part of my evaluation to say the damages aren't worth the deductible. I would just tell you that.
So before any claim was to be filed, obviously, you do your due diligence and look at all of that prior.
Well, and I'm still learning the status here, so are you telling me that no claim has been filed for Hurricane Hannah on Weslaco?
Mike?
Yeah, yes, Mr. Gonzalez, there are, I don't remember off the top of my head, there are about 4 or 5 facilities that we did file claims on. But as you mentioned, we do have a 5%, our deductible is 5% of the total insured value of that building. So a lot of the damage, well, every single building that we filed a claim on, the damages fell below the deductible. And in most cases, we were spared. We did very well during Hurricane Hannah. So most of the damages were for water extraction. Like I said, we have an independent adjuster that comes in and looks at these things. So it was mainly just water damage, water remediation, rising water. Nothing on the roofs.
Okay. So I don't mind. I think it's a good idea, as long as we don't file a claim prior to your report.
Okay. Well, it sounds like a claim has been filed. I know it was per building, and I'll have to see if they assign different claim numbers per building, but I'm happy to just evaluate it. And
That's awesome.
Obviously, you guys have to permit me to continue with anything beyond that.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion on agenda item B by Mr. Gonzalez and a second by Mr. De Los Santos. We have any further discussion on this?
I think the only discussion I would have is, normally we go out for qualifications, and we didn't, but we have a vote, so.
I did check, I was curious about that also, and I checked our board policy, and I guess maybe this would be a question for purchasing, but I saw that board approval is only required for $25,000 and up on purchases, and he's saying it would be at no cost to us.
There's nothing needs to be budgeted for this, and it's a professional services, which doesn't have to go out for bid.
Right, so we don't have to, which I just learned today by reading our board policy. I was always confused as to when do we need to go out for bids or when do we not? And I did check, and it's only $25,000 and up that we need to go out for bids or RFQs.
And you have my qualifications there I just gave you, just so you can keep it for the file, so there was some diligence being done on the board's part.
Yes,
That's
so
correct.
I checked to make sure we had the same question.
Okay, we'll go ahead and take it to a vote. Mr. Nieto?
No.
Mrs. Ustaita?
Aye.
Mr. Trevino?
Aye.
Mr. De Los Santos?
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Have a great evening. Item C, discussion and possible action for the board to consider approval of the final completion of the HVAC controls design and replacement project at Weslaco East High School CSP number 20-01-07. Dr. Valdez?
This project was completed in time. Administration is recommending approval of the final completion of the HVAC controls design and replacement project at Weslaco East High School.
Yes, good evening, board members, Dr. Valdez. So we are here requesting approval of final completion of the project. There was no allowances included in the contract for this project, so therefore there's nothing that we need to take back or keep from the project. And the project was completed on time, so there's no liquidated damages to assess to the contractor.
So move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion for agenda item C by Mr. Nieto and a second by Mrs. Sustaita.
Correct.
Any further discussion on that? Medical, everything turned out good with that, with the work?
Yes. Yeah, so part of the final completion approval is that they comply with all the documentation to close out the project, then we'll pay out the final retainage.
Okay, thank you. We'll take it to a vote. Mr. Nieto?
Aye.
Mrs. Sustaita?
Aye.
Mr. Trevino?
Aye.
Mr. De Los Santos?
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Aye.
Motion passes. Item D, discussion and possible action for the board to consider approval to reject all the proposals received for the Pete Abrigo Ag Complex Remodeling and Improvements Project, CSP number 21-07-33. Dr. Valdez?
Yes, we need to formally close this proposal, and we did receive a total of six proposal response packages with a project cost range of 3.8 million to 5.8 million. We do have Mr. Americo Garza here to share further information regarding those proposals.
Yes, Dr. Vaz, so essentially it's a formality to officially reject the proposals that came in so that we can, we're requesting for the board to allow us to, at a future time, rebid the project once we have the market come down a bit so that we can have better numbers for the project itself. So again, it's just a formality to officially reject all the proposals and then put it on hold for the future.
Make a motion to approve. Second.
A motion by Mr. De Los Santos, a second by Mr. Nieto.
Correct.
And the motion, it was for agenda item D for the board to consider the approval to reject all the proposals received for the Pete Abrigo Ag Complex and Remodeling Improvements Project, CSP number 21-07-33. Any further discussion?
Yes. So it's not a formality, because we have a document from the engineer says it is unsafe, the goat barn. Do we have a plan B for the goat barn? Because my two boys are there with their goats and along with other families. And so what is the contingency plan if we're gonna not move forward? And I get it, the price is crazy, crazy high right now. So I know overall, we need this facility, but what do we do in the time being right now for the goat barn and the hog barn?
Yes, sir. So we started the process to transition them temporarily, and that temporary time frame could be as long as a year, depending on the market, that will allow us to rebid the project. So we're trying to transfer everybody to that arena that we're trying to remodel, for which the project is being placed on hold. And so we're prepping that area right now. We started with the cleaning of the insulation that's kind of falling off from the top, and the chicken wire we have up there as well. There's a lot of debris that came down. The next thing to do, and we're in the process of procuring the services of tilling and disking the soil so we can soften it up for the animals, bring in the pens, and then put the fencing around again to protect them from any animals, any dogs or anything like that.
So move the current fencing that we have at the goat barn now?
Yes, yeah.
Move it to the back?
Correct. So either we move that or buy additional material to install.
So as far as the pigeons, because their fecal matter is not good for the animals, are we going to replace lo de arriba, lo que se está cayendo?
Yes.
No, so essentially the pigeons would come in through the side. Yeah, so we're thinking that maybe doing some more screening of what we have on the north side.
On the north?
Yeah, possibly to add to that. It's going to be quite a bit of material because of the east side as well, which is all the way open from the bottom to the top, as opposed to the north and south side, which is a smaller height.
Okay. As long as we don't stop working for these kids, because they're part of our kids as well.
Right.
And so, I know times are tough and prices are high. And so I just don't want this to be forgotten.
Absolutely.
Please, that's all I'm asking from y'all.
Absolutely, no.
Thank you, guys.
We'll be
Appreciate it.
monitoring the market so we can get it back to the board.
Sounds great. Thank you, guys.
Yes, and I have visited the facility several times, so I'm on it, and we're doing our best to make sure that everyone's safe first
Easy.
and foremost.
Absolutely.
Americo, do we have those areas blocked off some way, shape, or form, the ones that are unsafe?
Well,
Not
no,
right now,
We still have the kids in there, or the animals and the projects that are in there. We're prepping the arena so we can transfer everybody over to the arena. Yes.
You say about a month, probably?
Yes, that's what we're looking at. Yeah, once we get that dirt tilled and everything's gonna move a lot faster.
Okay.
So we're working on that as we speak.
Yeah, because I know more of the projects are coming over
Right.
tomorrow. They start getting here también, so.
And there'll be plenty of room in the
Okay.
arena for 'em.
Sounds good.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Americo.
Thank you, Americo.
Thank
Go ahead
you.
and take it to a vote. Mr. Nieto?
Aye.
Mrs. Ustaita?
Aye.
Mr. Trevino?
Aye.
Mr. De Los Santos?
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Aye.
Motion passes. Item E, discussion and possible action for the board to consider approval of allowance expenditure number 3 for the change in scope of work needed for the construction of the Bilingual Stadium Visitor Parking Lot Project, CSP number 21-01-19. Dr. Vargas?
Yes, this is additional work beyond the scope of the original project, but there will be no increase to the cost of the project because of the net cost of the additional improvements. And so we do need to add that sidewalk so that way it's safe for individuals who, for handicap accessible parking to make their way to the ticket booth. And we do have Mr. Garza here to elaborate should you have any questions.
Yes, so again, this is not a change order. We're not changing the contract cost, so we're just taking from the allowances that we have built in there. And so this allowance expenditure consists of several additional scope of works that happen through the project and credits that we're taking as well. So the first one is that sidewalk that we're talking about. It was not included in the plan, so after the fact, once the project was complete, we saw that we need to tie in the handicap parking stall area to the ticket booth. As you can see on that image on your screen, the people at this time would have to walk on the drive itself of the parking lot to get to the ticket booth sidewalk. So we're trying to add that sidewalk from this section right here where the handicap stalls are to tie into the ticket booth sidewalk. Additionally, on item number 2, we had to add a gate because of the shifting of the sidewalk that ties the athletic facilities to the stadium to add more parking stalls. That butted up into the fence, which did not have a gate right in front of it at the time. So we added that gate, and that was a cost of $750. The sidewalk for the ticket booth was originally signed a 5-foot wide. We expanded that to 10 feet to allow for more of the fans to congregate around there. That one was for a cost of $1,971.60. We added wheel stops to keep the cars from encroaching onto the sidewalk. So everywhere you have sidewalk, or we have sidewalk, we added wheel stops. That we paid for the labor. We just asked the contractor to install the wheel stops. We bought the wheel stops themselves. So he charged us for 57 wheel stops, $1,140. We took a credit on detention of excavation of the detention pond that was unnecessary, and that credit was for $3,160. And then another credit for one of the stalls on the north side of the horseshoe area that was in conflict with one of the oak trees that's out there. And so we told them, just leave it out, give us a credit for that. And that credit was for $765. And then we'll call it a credit, but essentially they tore into our fiber optic line while they were working on the project, the line that goes to the stadium from the high school campus. And so we took a credit there as well of $1,125. So the total of this essentially comes out to us, taken from the allowance, $1,511. But we still have the allowance that we're going to take back $17,000, a little bit over $17,000.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion for item E by Mr. De Los Santos, by Mr. Gonzalez, and a second by Mr. De Los Santos. Have any further discussion on this? We'll go ahead and take it to a vote. Mr. Nieto.
Aye.
Mr. Trevino.
Aye.
Mr. De Los Santos.
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Aye.
Motion passes. And item F, discussion and possible action for the board to consider approval for the girls' athletic facilities and boys' athletic facilities at Weslaco High School and Weslaco East High School project CSP number 18-05-21 as follows. Liquidated damages. Dr. Valdez?
Yes, this item was not approved when the board approved the final completion of the project, and we have Mr. Garza and Mr. Andres Sanchez available for questions.
Yeah, so when we brought to the board the approval of the final completion, the contractor was disputing the liquidated damage being assessed, which is a total of $49,500. They were 99 days late on the project, and it would have been higher, but they did provide documentation that brought it down to that amount. We did give the opportunity to the contractor, or for the contractor to submit more documentation if they had any disputing the amount, and we never received anything to date. We haven't gotten anything from them, so we're bringing it back to the board for approval of the liquidated damages.
So for agenda item F, do we have any motion?
So move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Nieto and a second by Mr. De Los Santos. Any further discussion? Go ahead and take it to a vote. Mr. Nieto.
Aye.
Mr. Trevino.
Aye.
Mr. De Los Santos.
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item G, discussion and possible action for the board to consider approval of the 7th invoice from Weaver and Tidwell LLP for work done on the forensic audit of the district. Dr. Valdez?
The firm did provide the final report and was presented to the board during a board workshop, which was held September 20th, 2021. So administration is recommending approval for the 7th invoice payment.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. De Los Santos, and a second by Mr. Trevino for item G, discussion and possible action for the board to consider approval of the 7th invoice from Weaver and Tidwell LLP for work done on the forensic audit of the district. Any further discussion? We'll go ahead and take it to a vote. Mr. Nieto.
Aye.
Mr. Trevino.
Aye.
Mr. De Los Santos.
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Aye.
Motion passes. Move on to item H. Discussion and possible action to terminate the agreement for financial advisory services with Hilltop Securities and authorize the superintendent to send, pursuant to the terms of the agreement, a 30-day termination notice letter to Hilltop Securities to be effective 30 days from the date the board takes action. Dr. Valdez?
Yes, this item was requested by trustee coach Jesse Trevino.
I requested this item because I know Hilltop has been, and I guess Andres, you can answer this. How long has Hilltop been with the district?
For a long time, more than 20 years.
Okay. I think, just having come on the board here recently, and I think it's to our advantage to go out there and see what else is out there, what other companies have to offer.
Okay.
So I make a motion to
I'll second.
I have a motion on agenda item H by Mr. Trevino and a second by Mr. De Los Santos. Do we have any further discussion?
How have Hilltop done over the last few years financially?
Say that again?
How have they done for the district?
Okay.
Well, they have advised us whenever the time that we went out for bonds, whenever we did maintenance tax sales, they worked with us, kept track of the market. They were working on proposing a refunding of one of our bonds that we have, because with a tough situation that we have purchased a couple of times, and we had told them, just wait a little bit, let's go through, get a new board set up, and then we'll come back later and bring it up. Let's work on the maintenance tax first to see if it get approved or not, and then we'll bring up the other one. But every time there was a chance to do something, we refunded, they came to us, we brought it to the board, got approved, we processed it, it just saved us money on our bonds.
Mr. Sanchez, when is his contract? Is it a year-to-year renewal?
It's a 5-year contract.
5-year?
Yes.
And at what point are we?
I believe we're on year 2 or 3 of the 5 years.
Year 2 or 3 of the 5 years?
Is it a 5-year term with a
Yes.
30-day notification?
It's
to
a 5-year,
cancel?
yes,
Yes.
5-year contract.
And they've been doing good work as far as you can tell?
Yes, oh yeah, we don't have any problems. And they work with several administrations, several superintendents, CFOs as well.
How have they helped you with the INS and the M&O taxes? And as far as saving money, you're looking for the best way to formulate how to get the INS and the M&O. Have they been helpful with that?
Well,
Because
they don't get involved with that. They get involved with the bonds that we issue are the ones that we need the INS taxes for. So what they tell us is the bond that we issued already, they have the interest that we pay on the bonds at a certain rate. When the market conditions help, that the interests are going down, then they keep an eye on it and say, this is feasible to do the refunding now. And when we issue new bonds with a lower interest rate, the district is going to save money, which helps us over the remaining life of the bonds. And we've done several times with them. There's also a bond counsel that we use. When we had the maintenance tax on the last time, there was a gentleman as well that came with him to present. That's on the attorney side. So there's always a financial advisor and a bond counsel that had to be involved. But they check with the attorney general, make sure that what they're recommending meets the law, the requirements, and they will be able to process the way they tell the board we're going to do it.
Mr. Sanchez, and how closely do you work with this company? Is it on a regular basis?
Well, it's not a monthly thing.
Okay.
Whenever we need, they approach us when they see the market conditions improving, they let us know.
Okay.
Things looking better, we have a chance to refund or just every 6 months, anything you need, anything coming up, let us know. Anything we can help you with, any reports, we'll help you with it. And they do. For an example, Mr. Javier Ruiz, our budget director, as part of doing the audit report together, there's a note that we had to show in the financial report, the audit, that shows the debt for the area, which includes the school district, the city, the county, and it's kind of complicated for us to get it. So they help us to get that information. And we email them and they send it to us right away, within the day or two. This is the information you need and how we present it in the audit report. Then the auditor looked at it, it's always good.
I believe it, it's a good opportunity to see what else is out there, either more aggressive or not, or if they want to resubmit a bid, that's fine, but at least we get to hear presentations and so forth.
There are several companies that provide financial advisory services.
We'll go ahead and take it to a vote. Mr. Nieto?
No.
Was that, sir?
No.
No. Mrs. Sustaita?
Aye.
Mr. Trevino?
Aye.
Mr. De Los Santos?
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez?
No.
And my vote is no. Motion fails. So we go on, so do we need to address I? So no action on I? And then on
So-
J?
So what happens when it's 3-3?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't understand. I mean, there's a lot of companies out there. We've been doing this, just because you've been doing something a certain way for so many years, it may not be advantageous,
Yeah, I just feel like if they've been doing good work, and Mr. Sanchez feels confidence in them, I think, it's something that I would rather have them finish out the contract, and then we can go out for RFQs once the contract is up.
I agree.
We'll go on to item J, discussion and possible action for the board to consider approval of revisions to the Weslaco ISD compensation plan for fiscal year 2021, 2022 to reflect a peer equity adjustment for internal bus driver employees. Dr. Valdez?
The purpose of this adjustment is to equalize pay for the position of bus driver for bus drivers that are on the 6-hour schedule, pay grade 404. And those are for currently employed WISD. If you recall, we gave a pay increase to attract and recruit bus drivers due to the shortage in the area. And So we need to make an equity adjustment. We do have HR directors here to further clarify, so that way we can bump them up as far as for, they're only 82% of midpoint. And so that way we, the
So
zero experience would then be getting compensated a little more than, or,
Right.
but the same as the, with experience.
Right, so essentially with the increase as it was set, we had 7 bus drivers who, with the increase, were at the same pay rate with experience in the district as any new bus drivers coming in with zero experience. So in order to equalize that, we made that 2% adjustment, and that would increase the pay rate for those bus drivers that have that experience, so that someone coming in with zero experience would be below their pay rate. So
move to
that's all
approve.
this adjustment is.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Before they go,
So for item J, I've got a motion by Mr. Nieto and a second by Mr. De Los Santos. Any further discussion?
yes, I just had some questions for, I guess maybe for Dr. Valdez or HR. I'm fine with this, the bus drivers, but I have been asking because we left the compensation plan as approved with modifications, but we never went back to see, clean up the positions that were there. That's our budget, right? So I don't know still what we're doing.
Yeah, we're still in the process of cleaning it up, and this is part of where working with Ms. Vargas is going to help us with some of the work that she done. This peer equity report also was part of the work that she'd done, so it was us coming in and catching up on that, and trying to figure out, where we are, because our goal is to get that compensation plan completed by November, by the regular meeting in November. Yeah. So this was, there's a few things that still have to be adjusted. This was one of them.
Okay.
There's a few other positions we're going back and still working on and making those modifications. Our goal, as we reported to Dr. Valdez, is to have everything completed to bring it to the regular board meeting in November.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll go ahead and take it to a vote. Mr. Nieto?
Aye.
Mrs. Ustaita?
Aye.
Mr. Trevino?
Aye.
Mr. De Los Santos?
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Aye.
Motion passes. So we'll move on to item 12, closed meeting to discuss A, personnel matters, Texas Government Code 551.074, employment of personnel, certified professional and non-contractual personnel. 2, resignations and retirements. 3, deliberation regarding the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee, Texas Government Code 551.074 and 551.071. B, deliberation regarding acquisition of real property, Texas Government Code 551.072. C, consultation with attorney regarding A, pending or contemplated litigation, B, a settlement offer, or C, a matter in which the duty of the attorney to the Weslaco ISD under the Texas Disciplinary Rules of Professional Conduct of the State Bar of Texas clearly conflicts with Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code 551.071. And 1, Melva Segura versus Weslaco Independent School District, cause number C-4026-21-A in the 92nd Judicial District Court, Hidalgo County, Texas. It is now 8:22, and we will go into closed session. (9:06 p.m.) and we will reconvene in open meeting. Item 13. I let the minutes show that Trustee Andrew Gonzalez left the meeting at 9:01. So for item 13, reconvene in open meeting. We got A, possible action if necessary on items discussed in closed meeting. Number 1, discussion and possible action on new employment, certified professional and non-contractual personnel. Dr. Vargas?
Yes, administration's recommendation is for your approval as discussed in closed session.
Motion to approve. Second.
I've had a motion by Mr. De Los Santos and a second by Mr. Nieto. Any discussion?
No.
We'll take it to a vote. Mr. Nieto?
Aye.
Mrs. Ustaita?
Aye.
Mr. Trevino?
Aye.
Mr. De Los Santos?
Aye.
Item 2, discussion and possible action on resignations, retirements. Dr. Valdez?
Administration's recommendation is for approval as discussed in closed session.
So move.
Second?
I got a motion by Mr. Nieto and a second by Mrs. Sustaita. Any discussion? We'll take it to a vote. Mr. Nieto?
Aye.
Mrs. Sustaita?
Aye.
Mr. Trevino?
Aye.
Mr. De Los Santos?
Aye.
Motion passes. Number 3, discussion, possible action on acquisition of real property. This is a no action
No action.
item. Number 4, no action item also.
No action.
Okay. And we'll move on to item 14, adjournment. It's 9:07 PM. Meeting is adjourned.